Chapter 45. At this moment, Old Man Gu's life was in Li Zongjio's hands. Even if Old Man Gu really wanted to cook him, he could only comply. Gu Man immediately took out a few buckets of water and poured it onto Old Man Gu's body. Even the fearless Gu Man's hands trembled uncontrollably when he did such a rebellious thing. Whoosh! As the water was poured in, the temperature within the pill furnace also became more stable. Although Gu Yanhong and the others could not see Old Man Gu's situation clearly, they could feel that the fire poison seemed to be forced out. The surrounding temperature was also constantly rising. The hall master of the Huichun Hall's face was most likely ruined. He was helped up by one person and bandaged up. However, the other two people were watching the scene in front of them from wooden stools. Li Zongjio not only did not detoxify the fire, but he also added more and more ingredients. He even continuously threw some herbs that were specially used to increase the fire aura and some herbs that leaned towards the fire attribute into the furnace. It was obvious that he wanted to cook a good pot of soup. However, they could not say anything. They had already failed once and could only watch Li Zongjio do what he wanted. If they accidentally killed Old Man Gu, they might be able to blame it all on Li Zongjio. When they thought of this, they could not help but feel a little better. Then let's see what tricks you are going to play. They had so many experienced old doctors here, but they could not do it well. How could a mere teenager like you be able to detoxify the fire poison of a third-grade origin beast? Just as Li Zongjio was cooking Old Man Gu, Gu Yanhong and the others were watching from the side. Gu Man also clenched his fist. If something happened to Old Man Gu, he would definitely take down Li Zongjio with a punch first. He would definitely not let Li Zongjio escape like this. This old man's strength is really strong. Li Zongjio also felt the terrifying power of the old man from the Gu clan during the catalyzing process. To be able to endure for so many years under such fire poison, the Yuan power in his body would only become more and more vigorous. However, the time limit was now up and he could no longer endure. If there were no accidents, he would not be able to endure for much longer. This was not a one-time eruption, but it was enough to completely destroy him. Since you're so determined, I'll create a new set of fire bones for you. At this moment, the white dragon tattoo on the Yuan bead within Li Zongjio's body seemed to have awakened. Furthermore, as the power of the white dragon tattoo appeared, it also allowed Li Zongjio's control over the flames to possess the same foundation as in his previous life. So this white dragon soul is not to strengthen my alchemy skills, but to strengthen my mental strength. Li Zongjio had originally thought that the existence of the white dragon soul would be able to help him improve the refinement of this elixir, as well as the refinement of this elixir. However, now that he had broken through to the Origin Master realm, he could truly feel the effects of the white dragon soul. It was to increase his mental strength. Based on Li Zongjio's experience, it had at least doubled. Under such a state, Li Zongjio was able to reforge the body of the old man from the Gu clan with even greater ease. Boom! Hot water boiled within the pill furnace. Li Zongjio's Yuan power passed through the pill furnace and instantly poured into the old man's body. The terrifying power instantly activated the fire poison. Li Zongjio's mental strength also seeped into the old man's body, controlling the fire poison and continuously tempering the old man's bones. During this process, it was as if someone was peeling open your skin and using a hammer to continuously pound your bones. This kind of cruel strength was simply unbearable for ordinary people. Therefore, even the unconscious old man couldn't help but groan in pain. The reason for that was because this sort of feeling was truly unforgettable and deeply shocking. Godfather, a trace of worry flashed across Gu Yanhong's eyes. Gu Man was also extremely nervous. If something happened to the old man, they would be in big trouble. It was truly careless of them to hastily hand the old man over to Li Zongjio. Now, they could only pray that Li Zongjio would be able to smoothly complete this process. This is really laborious. Li Zongjio's mental strength had increased, but under such circumstances, it still took him nearly 2 hours to completely inject the fire poison into the old man's bones. At the same time, the medicinal soup that Li Zongjio had just steamed was able to allow the old man's body to feel a sense of harmony. Through this method, The bones in the old man's body could gradually fuse with the fire poison. Then, it would become an even more advanced energy. This was the fire poison bone. This was a method that Li Zongjio had researched in his previous life. The human body was too malleable, so this kind of fire poison bone was also very effective. It could almost cure hundreds of poisons. Of course, the premise was that you had to have a way to cooperate with the medicinal decoction and a strong mental strength to help the fire poison integrate into the body. This was an extremely important process. Even though this method of fusing and detoxifying had been researched, only Li Zongjio was able to perform it at that time. The rest of the people didn't have such skill and experience. Li Zongjio withdrew his mental strength and yuan power. Even with Li Zongjio's current strength, he still felt a sense of exhaustion and powerlessness. Immediately, Li Zongjio took 2 steps back and sat down cross-legged. He began to circulate the Yuan Sutra to recover his yuan power. This exhaustion was like exhaustion. Gu Yanhong and the others naturally saw it. Is it done? What's the situation now? Gu Man was stunned for a moment. The old man was still being cooked in the furnace. Why was he sitting down? Should he fish him out or add more fuel to the fire? Boss, you should at least say something. Sure. Gu Yanhong raised her hand and said, as if she was carefully sensing the movements in the pill furnace. All of a sudden, the yuan power in the entire room. It was as if a boiling river was being pulled by a strange force. Boom. Elemental energy continuously surged into the pill furnace from the air. And when the yuan power surged in, it also dragged a long tail. A scorching aura instantly spread out. This was fire yuan power. Isn't the old man using earth yuan power? Why is the fire yuan power so intense? Gu Yanhong's heart was shocked. However, one could clearly feel that old man Gu's originally dispirited aura was gradually becoming vigorous at this moment. Boom. The cauldron, which was made of refined iron, instantly shattered into pieces. A bald old man stood in the mist. Chapter 46. Gu Xuanwu looked at his palm in shock. Fortunately, in this mist, the key parts of Gu Xuanwu's body were not seen by others. Seeing this, Gu Man hurriedly threw out a long robe. Old man, even if you have the ability, you can't show off like this. Gu Xuanwu calmly put on the long robe and waved his hand to disperse the mist. He appeared in front of Gu Yanhong and the others. They saw the old man, who was on the verge of death, standing in front of them with a ruddy face. It seemed that he still had a lot of energy to release. This old man's aura was actually so strong. This was an unprecedented state. Godfather! Gu Yanhong could not help but exclaim softly. Gu Xuanwu looked at the two of them. My poison is all gone. And my origin power has improved. Who is it? Which master did you invite to help? Could it be that you have exhausted my Gu family's wealth? Gu Xuanwu suddenly became agitated. In this regard, Gu Yanhong and Gu Yanhong also looked at each other. They also felt a little ashamed of Gu Xuanwu's question. Although they had such determination, they did not do such a thing. Instead, they only invited a few top alchemists from the city. If these words were to be said, they would definitely be strangled to death by Gu Xuanwu. It's Mr. Li who helped detoxify the poison. Mr. Li? Just as he was about to ask who this Mr. Li was, he followed their gaze and saw Li Zongjio, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. This young man, that was the fire poison of a third-grade golden crystal yuan lion. Even if some third-grade alchemists were to help, they might not be able to detoxify this fire poison. The young man in front of him looked like he had not graduated from a school or something. He could not even be considered an ordinary graduate. What could such a young man do? However, Gu Yanhong and the others' gazes told Gu Xuanwu that this was true. I was the one who saved you. I have already saved you. Now I can ask for my reward. Li Zongjio opened his eyes and said as he stood up. At the same time, he took a look at Gu Xuanwu. Even though Gu Xuanwu wasn't young anymore, his muscular body was well maintained. If Luoxia City were to hold an elderly body competition, Gu Xuanwu would definitely be able to obtain a good ranking. Since it was Mr. Li Jr. who saved this old man's life, if Mr. Li Jr. has any requests, feel free to state them. As long as it is within the power of my Gu clan, we will not refuse. Mr. Li? Li Zongjio couldn't help but smile. This old man really knew how to take advantage of his seniority. He even called him Mr. Li Jr. directly. Later, he would let him know what it meant to be powerful. Alright, then I'll get straight to the point. Your Gu clan is good at martial arts, and my Li clan just happens to be lacking a team of bodyguards. Your Gu clan will provide the manpower and effort to form a team of bodyguards for my use, solely for defensive purposes. Furthermore, you must personally serve as the captain. Li Zongjio pointed at Gu Xuanwu and said. Gu Xuanwu was also taken aback. After Gu Yanhong, who was at the side, stopped speaking, she immediately became angry. This was simply stepping on her nose and actually making such an outrageous request. Asking the old man of the Gu clan to be the head of bodyguards for the Li clan? What virtue does the Li clan have? Mr. Li, on account of the fact that you have saved my foster father, I will not pursue the matter this time around. If you wish to intentionally offend the dignity of my Gu clan in the future, do not blame the members of my Gu clan for being impolite. Gu Yanhong said angrily. At first, Gu Man didn't understand what Li Zongjio meant. However, after hearing Gu Yanhong's words, he understood. He actually wanted the Gu clan to provide people to be the bodyguards for the Li clan. Moreover, he wanted the old man to personally take action. Exactly what kind of person would have such face to make the old man personally take action? Don't think too highly of yourself. Therefore, Gu Man also looked at Li Zongjio with a grimace. If necessary, it wouldn't be a problem to directly tear apart Li Zongjio's bones. Hee, thank you for thinking so highly of me, Mr. Li. My Gu clan's disciples are good at guarding formations. If the Li clan lacks manpower, then naturally, we can dispatch dozens of disciples to help. However, I have already retired from the world for many years. You want me to take action? That will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. Gu Xuanwu said with a smile. Although he said that he was smiling, it gave people a feeling that he was scheming and cunning, as if he wanted to perform some dirty tricks. Obviously, this Gu Xuanwu had just recovered his strength and wanted to find someone to compare notes with. Since Li Zongjio was so arrogant, then he would teach him a lesson. One should pay attention when speaking to the old man. Of course, Gu Xuanwu wouldn't kill Li Zongjio. After all, this Li Zongjio was his savior. 5 moves. Li Zongjio said as he stretched out a palm. After hearing this, Gu Xuanwu couldn't help but smile. In Gu Xuanwu's opinion, this Li Zongjio wanted to shorten the danger gap. If you can block 5 of my moves, then it's my loss. One had to admit that this Mr. Li was very confident. If he thought that he could block 5 of his moves by the 3rd move, he would teach him how to be a good boy. Old man, why don't I go? Gu Man said in a deep voice. He even had a feeling of eagerness. This Li Zongjio had already displayed extraordinary strength by killing the Sun Clan's patriarch. Get lost. 5 moves. If you can touch me within 5 moves, then it's my loss. Li Zongjio said indifferently. This time, old Master Gu Xuanwu was a little angry. So arrogant at such a young age. If he could touch Li Zongjio within 5 moves, then it would be his win. Wasn't this an insult to Gu Xuanwu? As a retired soldier of the dynasty Xuanwu army, let alone 5 moves, he was best at defeating the enemy in 1 move. It wouldn't be a problem to kill you in 1 move, but now he dared to say that he could touch you within 5 moves. Alright, if I can't beat you within 5 moves, then I, Gu Xuanwu, swear in the name of a soldier that I will protect your Li clan for as long as I live. Gu Xuanwu said sternly. Hearing this, Li Zongjio smiled slightly. The atmosphere in the room also became extremely heavy. The hall master of the rejuvenation hall recovered and curled up in a corner with a few old doctors. They realized that in this kind of situation, there was no room for them to speak. No one even cared about them. Even if they walked away now, no one would notice. However, they still wanted to see Li Zongjio being viciously pressed to the ground and beaten up by old man Gu. This was the only way to vent their anger. Make your move. Chapter 47. Li Zongjio said. He only had 5 moves to begin with. If Li Zongjio had tried to delay, he might have been able to withstand the 5 moves. However, Li Zongjio had allowed his opponent to make the first move, which meant that he had already fallen into a passive state. Allowing such a strong opponent to seize the initiative was an extremely disadvantageous thing for him. However, Li Zongjio was so arrogant. Originally, Gu Xuanwu was somewhat indebted to Li Zongjio for saving his life. After all, only he knew about his own injuries. Now that he was full of energy, Li Zongjio's medical skills must be extraordinary. However, Li Zongjio's performance was too arrogant. He must have medical skills. He had already begun to have the feeling of looking down on the world. Such an attitude was extremely disadvantageous to the development of a young person. It was necessary to knock Li Zongjio down a notch and let Li Zongjio know that there was always someone better than him. Alright, then I'm coming. I hope you can hold on. Gu Xuanwu's gaze suddenly became sharp. It was like two sharp knives that had just been unsealed, stabbing towards Li Zongjio's eyes. This was the sharpness and killing intent that had been honed for many years on the battlefield. Often, the enemy's aura would be completely disintegrated under this gaze. If even the will to battle was disintegrated, then it was as good as putting one's life in the hands of others. However, Li Zongjio was not moved at all under this gaze. It was as if he did not feel it at all. This kind of aura was just a piece of cake for Li Zongjio. In the 3,000 years of training in his previous life, what kind of ruthless people had he not seen and what kind of desperate situation had he not encountered? There was almost nothing that could shake Li Zongjio's heart that was like a rock. Now that he was reborn, perhaps only the familial love that he had not had the chance to enjoy in his previous life could move Li Zongjio. The killing intent in his eyes was directly ignored. Gu Xuanwu, on the other hand, was only slightly surprised before he launched his attack. Fierce Wind Earth Pillar Kill. Gu Xuanwu flipped his wrist and a sharp spike suddenly appeared under Li Zongjio's feet. It was the soil under the floor that was controlled by Gu Xuanwu's spiritual power. Accompanied by a powerful force, Li Zongjio was suppressed to the ground. Boom! Li Zongjio was directly pierced through by the earth stake. Even Gu Xuanwu did not expect that he would be able to kill Li Zongjio with just 30% of his power. It was too fast. Even Gu Xuanwu was not prepared. What if Li Zongjio died? How would he explain that? When the rest of the people saw Li Zongjio being impaled by the wooden stake, their eyes widened. However, the expected blood and flesh did not splatter out. Li Zongjio's figure gradually disappeared from the spot. An afterimage? This time, it was Gu Xuanwu's turn to be shocked. On the battlefield, he had seen all kinds of ferocious enemies. There were even some people who used underhanded methods. To Gu Xuanwu, it was very common. He had even seen some crafty methods with his own eyes. Now that he looked at Li Zongjio, he realized that Li Zongjio was actually able to silently use this afterimage technique to dodge his attack. This was something that Gu Xuanwu had never expected. Good move. Originally, he thought that Li Zongjio was a little arrogant. However, it seemed that Li Zongjio's ability was not bad. Just from that point alone, it was enough for him to laugh proudly among his peers. However, it was a pity that Li Zongjio was facing a veteran who had been on the battlefield for a long time. A mere mistake would not affect Gu Xuanwu. Instead, it would make Gu Xuanwu more vigilant. Behind, Earth Burying Earth Kill. Gu Xuanwu's reaction was indeed very sharp. In this narrow room, it had already become Gu Xuanwu's territory. Almost every movement could not escape Gu Xuanwu's eyes. Therefore, Li Zongjio's figure was quickly captured. In an instant, an earth lotus exploded under Li Zongjio's feet. The stone floor below the ground shattered like an eggshell. At the same time, under the control of the Earth Yuan power, it was like a giant beast opening its mouth and swallowing Li Zongjio. An afterimage again. Now, 2 moves had already passed. Gu Xuanwu still could not even touch Li Zongjio's clothes. As an old general, this was a great humiliation. You can be proud of yourself among your peers for being able to dodge 2 of my moves. However, with this next move, you will lose without a doubt. Li Zongjio could delay. However, Gu Xuanwu could not delay. He had to take down Li Zongjio first. When a junior said that he would give you 5 moves, did you really think that he would give you 5 moves? If you really gave him 5 moves and still could not touch him, It would be embarrassing. 3 moves. It was enough to determine the victor. Gu Xuanwu had already changed his method. He completely treated Li Zongjiao as an enemy of the same level. The aura of a Yuan general exploded from his body. In just a breath, the aura in his body had already reached a certain level. Everyone in the room could feel the immense pressure. The stones on the ground, the stones outside the window, and the bamboo leaves. It was as if they were all being controlled by this Yuan power. This is the strongest Yuan skill that I have mastered. Grade 3 Yuan skill, Earth Storm Kill. Li Zongjiao was forced out of his position by this aura and leaned against the corner of the room. Staring at the figure in front of him, Li Zongjiao was shocked. A strong aura gathered around Gu Xuanwu. In the next moment, a terrifying aura exploded from Gu Xuanwu's body, forming a whirlpool. Behind him, sand and stones flew. Countless stones pierced through the door and walls and flew towards Li Zongjiao. If these stones casually touched Li Zongjiao, it would be enough to break Li Zongjiao's bones. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. This was a killing move that covered a large area. If this move was used on the battlefield, there would not be a single person left alive within a 10-meter radius. However, Li Zongjiao did not panic under this move. The footwork he used seemed to bring Li Zongjiao's figure back and forth in the room. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He passed through the door and walls. The stone pillar in front of him was also smashed into smithereens, almost like a hornet's nest. A load-bearing pillar was smashed into pieces. Li Zongjiao's figure quickly flew out of the window. The house collapsed with a loud boom. Under these 3 moves, Li Zongjiao did not attack. He merely used his footwork and dodged all these moves. Gu Man first threw out the doctors. Then, he smashed the stones in front of him and rushed out. Gu Yanhong's figure also landed on the ground. Gu Xuanwu broke through the pile of ruins and landed in front of the courtyard. At this moment, Li Zongjiao's figure floated down from the bamboo in front of him. His body was spotless. Chapter 48. When Gu Xuanwu saw Li Zongjiao's clean clothes, his pupils shrank. Although he did not believe it, he had to admit that if they were on the same level, Gu Xuanwu was definitely not Li Zongjiao's opponent. Even though Gu Xuanwu was able to suppress Li Zongjiao with his Yuan power, there would be a day when Li Zongjiao's Yuan power cultivation would surpass Gu Xuanwu's. I admit defeat, Gu Xuanwu said directly. Being a soldier was one of their characteristics. They dared to take responsibility for their actions without hesitation. If they lost, they lost. There was no need to argue about these things. In their eyes, there was nothing shameful about losing. With your skills, you can look down on your peers. However, after entering the Heaven Pass Gorge, the number of young geniuses in the Shengyan dynasty will still be as many as the stars in the sky. Your cultivation talent is not bad, but you must remember not to be arrogant and careless. Gu Xuanwu said immediately. These words were for Li Zongjiao's good. Back then, Gu Xuanwu joined the army. The road he walked and the people he met could be said to have broadened his horizons. In the process, Gu Xuanwu had seen too many young experts. There were even many young experts who had fallen at their most dazzling moment. It was because they were too arrogant and careless. In the end, they died because of their own carelessness. In this small Luoxia city, to be able to see such a talented and capable person like Li Zongjiao, Gu Xuanwu did not want Li Zongjiao to fall too early. He only hoped that Li Zongjiao could go further. Li Zongjiao smiled slightly. There is no joking in the army. Prepare your luggage tomorrow and report to the Li residence. After saying that, Li Zongjiao turned and left. What kind of arrogance was this? It seemed that Li Zongjiao had come to the Gu family to cure Gu Xuanwu and then trick Gu Xuanwu into the Li family to become the captain of the guards. Such a deep trap. They had led the wolf into the house. Gu Yanhong and the others reacted. It turned out that they had also been tricked by this young man. Now, they knew how powerful the young master of the Li family was. Even Gu Xuanwu, who had recovered, could not touch Li Zongjiao within 3 moves. There was no need to complete the real 5 moves. 3 moves were enough. This kid is really arrogant. Gu Xuanwu was a little flustered by Li Zongjiao's cool departure. He was really arrogant. Enough. Foster father, that Li Zongjio personally killed Mu Yuan in the medicine refining plaza yesterday. After hesitating for a while, she finally went to tell her father about it. Himself? Himself? That assassin? Was killed by him? They had paid attention to Mu Yuan. After all, he was an expert of this generation. Moreover, the old master liked to help the weak and get rid of such unrighteous people. However, after weighing the pros and cons, they felt that it was too risky to kill him. However, in order to ensure the safety of Luoxia City, they had paid attention to him. Although no one from the Gu family was present at the alchemy competition yesterday, they had sent people to spy on the situation. Naturally, they had to pay attention to such things. Although Mu Yuan's strength had not reached the level of a true rank 1 prime general, it was not difficult to kill an ordinary rank 1 prime general. However, it was not difficult to kill an ordinary grade 1 prime general. In fact, it was even more difficult to deal with than an ordinary grade 2 prime general. This kid actually has the strength to kill a prime general. How did he cultivate? Who taught him? Gu Xuanwu instantly felt his hair stand on end. These things were easy to say, but doing it was harder than ascending to the heavens. That assassin, Mu Yuan, had been in the assassin circle for dozens of years. He was very cautious. Countless people wanted to kill him, but he had always escaped. Now, he had died at the hands of a teenager in Luoxia City. I've seen the young geniuses of the capital. Just one of them is enough to block the Xuanwu army's 100-man formation. That kind of heroic spirit is not something we can compare to. However, this young surly Li Zongjio, I see an unfathomable profundity. This person's future achievements will not be any less than the geniuses of the capital. This was the highest evaluation that Gu Xuanwu could give Li Zongjio. He had no idea how the geniuses in the capital city cultivated. Pills and elixirs in their left hand and high-level techniques in their right. Combined with extraordinary effort, they had achieved what they were today. If Li Zongjio had been born in the capital, he would have been a hero in the future. This tiny Luoxia city would not be Li Zongjio's final destination. He actually has such a high evaluation. Gu Xuanwu's evaluation caused Gu Yanhong and the others to be extremely shocked in their hearts. There had never been a person in the city who was valued so highly by the old man. Moreover, it was the first time someone had given such a positive evaluation to someone like Li Zongjio. We can't offend the Li clan in the future, Gu Xuanwu said. Although Gu Xuanwu's clan was protected by the Xuanwu army, there were still plenty of people who could move against the Gu clan. The Gu clan had been able to live peacefully for so many years because Gu Xuanwu had always kept a low profile. The Gu clan also adhered to this style. Young master, what's the situation inside? Li Gue asked when he saw Li Zongjio come out. Li Gue couldn't help but feel nervous when he heard some powerful ripples coming from inside, but this was the Gu clan's territory, so he couldn't barge in for the time being. When he saw Li Zongjio come out, he breathed a sigh of relief, but he was also extremely curious about the situation inside. Just what had Li Zongjio done and what had happened inside? It's nothing. Let's go back. We still have time tonight. Prepare a horse for me. I'm going to the Bai clan, Li Zongjio said. Young master, if you're going to the Bai clan, shouldn't you tell the patriarch? There's no need. But although the Bai clan is neutral, the patriarch said that the Bai clan has great ambitions and might attack us. Li Gue couldn't help but feel nervous. In Luoxia City, no one who can harm me, Li Zongjio, has yet to be born, Li Zongjio said proudly. However, Li Zongjio and Li Gue had just stepped out of the Gu clan's gate. Then he saw that someone had already caught up to him. Young Master Li, stop. Young Master Li, stop. The tall and burly man Gu Man had already rushed out. Li Zongjio stopped and looked at Gu Man who was running over. The old man said that I should follow young Master Li and be your bodyguard. I should protect young Master Li. It had to be said that with Gu Man's stocky build, it would be a waste of his talent if he didn't become a bodyguard. Just by standing there, he was already very imposing. Bodyguard? Li Gue couldn't help but glance at Gu Man, wondering what had happened inside. He knew Gu Man. Although he looked simple and honest, he was very arrogant. It was said that he had already become a reserve soldier of the Xuanwu army. If he could stand out in the training, he could become an official soldier. Such a person was actually coming to Li Zongjio to be his bodyguard? Wasn't he here to steal his rice bowl? Chapter 49. Alright, let's go to the Bai family. Li Zongjio said. Li Zongjio didn't know what Gu Xuanwu was thinking, but he didn't care. Because no matter what he was thinking, he had to be obedient in the end. When they were halfway there, Li Zongjio told Li Gui to go back and prepare to receive a new team of guards. At the same time, he also had to gather all the guards of the Li family to prepare for a training session. Li Gui didn't know what kind of guards they would receive, but he prepared according to the standard guards. The young lord's words wouldn't be wrong. Li Zongjio and Gu Man walked on the road. Gu Man's strong body attracted a lot of attention. The Bai family was located in a remote place in the north of Luoxia City. It was also very close to the city lord mansion. Riding a horse in the city, one couldn't go too fast. After about an hour, they finally arrived in front of the Bai family's courtyard. The Bai family was the most business-minded and the best business family. The Bai family's courtyard seemed to have become a kind of landmark building. A small part of the Bai family's buildings were open for outsiders to visit, which attracted a lot of people. At the same time, they also had a new and more comprehensive understanding of the Bai family. When the two got off their horses, the Bai family's guards immediately came forward. Do the two of you have an appointment? Appointment my ass. Gu Man of the Gu family, this is the young master of the Li family. Get out of the way. Gu Man immediately stepped forward and roared like a lion from the east. That rough voice caused the ears of the two to ring. When they saw that it was actually the Gu family's brute force king who had come, the two were so frightened that their faces turned pale. The title of brute force king came from a strength competition held by someone in Luoxia City. Gu Man had actually lifted a 3,600-pound cauldron above his head with both hands and stopped there for 10 seconds. A monster with such strength, it was very likely that he could directly tear a person apart. Imagine, if a person was directly torn into two halves, what kind of feeling would that be? It was simply unimaginable. However, what made them even more afraid was, this made them even more nervous. It was Li Zongjio. The young master of the Li clan is here. Please come in. The clan head said that if the young master of the Li clan is here, please come in. Gu Man looked at Li Zongjio in surprise. He didn't expect the young master of the Li family to be so famous. Just by saying his name, he could enter at will. Gu Man had never enjoyed such treatment before. Li Zongjio nodded and walked in. Lead the horse for me. Gu Man said bluntly. The young master of the Li family was here. Bai Luoxue had already said in advance that if the young master of the Li family came to visit, he was to inform her. The guard ran forward and was about to inform Bai Luoxue when he accidentally bumped into Bai Ma. Are you blind? How dare you bump into me? Do you want to die? Bai Tianju was hit and instantly flew into a rage. Today, a childhood playmate, a young master from a branch family of a big clan in Flying Cloud City, came to find him to reminisce about the old days. He was about to bring this fellow to the most fun place in Luoxia City. Now that the servant had bumped into her, her mood was ruined. Young master, please spare my life. Young master, please spare my life. The young master of the Li clan is here. The guard immediately knelt on the ground. If he apologized too late, he would probably be crippled. Bai Tianju originally wanted to drag him down and give him a dozen beatings. However, his attention was attracted by the guard's words. What? You said that pervert came to our Bai clan? Bai Tianju's expression changed when he heard this. Although the guard didn't know who the pervert Bai Tianju was talking about was, he couldn't think clearly and could only nod his head. Yes, he even brought a burly man. Motherfucker, he's trying to step on my Bai clan's head. He actually dares to bring people to my Bai clan to cause trouble. Brother Wenfeng, please wait for a moment. Let me drive this person away first. Bai Tianju said to the person beside him. This person was called Su Wenfeng. He was also Bai Tianju's childhood friend. However, the Su clan later moved to Flying Cloud City to develop. It seemed that they had developed quite well. Even you hate this person so much. I want to see how crooked his mouth and slanted eyebrows are. Su Wenfeng was also accompanied by a guard. There was quite a distance between the Flying Cloud City and the Luoxia City. If he didn't bring some people with him, then he might really be killed by the bandits. Li Zhongjiu, oh Li Zhongjiu, you finally fell into my hands. If there was a chance, Bai Tianju would definitely choose to eliminate Li Zhongjiu. After returning from the Alchemy Plaza, Bai Tianju's mind was only filled with how to get rid of Li Zhongjiu. He didn't care about Li Zhongjiu's performance in the plaza. After all, Li Zhongjiu had so many experts around him. Who knew if there was something fishy going on? Perhaps it was to create an image of Li Zhongjiu. In fact, it was all fake. Li Zhongjiu and Gu Man sat in the living room. A Bai clan guard followed them. Firstly, it was convenient for the guest to order around. Secondly, it was to keep an eye on the guest and prevent him from wandering around. After all, this was the Bai clan's territory. Even if he was a guest, he wasn't allowed to wander around. Who knew what he would do? The two of you, please take a rest. My clan head will be here soon. After the guard went to report, the dignified guard captain, Bai Baqiang, appeared. Bai Baqiang walked out and said. At the same time, he glanced at Gu Man. The two of them were about the same age and had once competed against each other. However, Bai Baqiang's strength and reputation were inferior to Gu Man's. After all, Gu Man was now a reserve member of the Xuanwu army. If he could become an official member of the Xuanwu army, he would really soar to the heavens. Brother Gu Man, long time no see. Why don't you join us? Bai Baqiang glanced at Gu Man, who was standing, and Li Zhongjiu, who was sitting. The relationship between the two of them seemed a little unusual. No need. I am young Master Li's guard. It is my duty. Gu Man said without hesitation. As he spoke, he even faintly felt a trace of pride. What was going on? A look of horror flashed across Bai Badong's eyes. With Gu Man's talent and strength, he was actually willing to become someone else's guard. Moreover, Bai Baqiang had heard of young Master Li before. Although he wasn't a hedonistic disciple, he definitely wasn't outstanding either. What ability did he have to make Gu Man become Li Zhongjiu's guard? Chapter 50. Gu Man clearly saw the shock in Bai Badong's eyes. However, he didn't care. If Bai Badong knew about Li Zhongjiu's strength, he would definitely be as willing as Gu Man. Bai Badong had already notified someone to invite the family head over. However, the family head hadn't arrived yet. Instead, a few figures strode in from outside the house. Based on their imposing manner, it seemed like they were here to send someone off. Li Zhongjiu, the Bai family doesn't welcome you. Please scram. Bai Tianju said arrogantly as he walked in. When he saw Bai Badong there, Bai Tianju felt even more at ease and became even more arrogant. Bai Badong was the captain of the Bai family's guards. At the very least, he could support Bai Tianju. Li Zhongjiu originally wanted to take a sip of tea and wait for a while. However, when he heard Bai Tianju's arrogant words, he shook his head and put down his teacup. Slap him. Li Zhongjiu said indifferently. Gu Man was also stunned when he heard this. He had never tried to slap the Sun family's young master before. However, since Li Zhongjiu had ordered him to do so, he had to do it. As for the consequences, he would leave it to Li Zhongjiu to bear. After all, this matter had nothing to do with him. He was just the one who did it. Slap me? Do you think this is your Li family? Li Zhongjiu, you're in my Bai family's territory. You'll have to crawl? Slap. Before Bai Tianju could finish his sentence, he pointed at Li Zhongjiu and started cursing. Gu Man stepped forward and gave him a resounding slap. With Gu Man's strength, the slap landed on Bai Tianju's face. Only Bai Tianju himself knew how painful the slap was. The White Day Colt was sent flying 3 meters into the air. It spun 3 times in the air before crashing heavily onto the ground with a thud. After Gu Man had made his move, he returned to Li Zhongjiu's side as if nothing had happened. Obviously, he wanted to blame everything on Li Zhongjiu. After all, Li Zhongjiu had asked him to do it. Li Zhongjiu's expression didn't change. I'll spare your life this time. If you don't keep your mouth clean, I'll cut off your tongue. Li Zhongjiu's words carried a trace of coldness. Bai Tianju, who had just woken up, heard the words. When he recalled Sun Qiu's tongue, he couldn't help but feel a chill. He hadn't expected that Li Zongjio would actually dare to be so arrogant and not give him any face in his Bai family's territory. Bai's faces. Gu Man's move just now had also exceeded Bai Baqiang's expectations. He hadn't expected Gu Man to actually dare to make a move. Gu Man didn't give any face at all. He had directly slapped their young master in front of the captain of the guards. Wasn't this a slap to Chihuahua's face? How could he tolerate this? Gu Man, you've gone too far. Li Zongjio, this is my Bai family's territory, not your Li family's. Bai Baqiang growled. His entire body instantly straightened up like a javelin. A sharp aura rushed towards Li Zongjio. Bai Baqiang naturally knew that Gu Man had made his move because of Li Zongjio. Therefore, if he wanted to subdue these two, he only needed to deal with Li Zongjio. In comparison, Li Zongjio did indeed look easier to deal with. Bai Baqiang, how dare you look down on me? Gu Man shouted. A similar aura blasted towards Bai Baqiang. The auras of the two great Yuan master-level powerhouses clashed, directly forming a Yuan energy storm. At the center of the fluctuation, Su Tianfeng stood on the spot with narrowed eyes. He didn't move at all. Of course, it wasn't Su Tianfeng's own ability. It was a middle-aged man behind Su Tianfeng who was releasing his aura to protect Su Tianfeng. He glanced at the Bai Baqiang who had just gotten up from the ground. Su Tianfeng hinted at the middle-aged man behind him. Immediately, the middle-aged man behind him understood. He took a step forward and suppressed Gu Man with Bai Baqiang. 2 against 1? Just you two clowns. Gu Man wasn't afraid in the slightest when facing the two of them. He even directly faced the aura and charged forward. However, the strength of the two of them was on par with Gu Man. Gu Man also relied on his fierce strength to forcefully resist the attacks. Otherwise, he would probably be defeated within 3 breaths. Gu Man was very clear about this. Right now, he could only hold on for about 20 breaths at most. However, at the 10th breath. On the other hand, Su Tianfeng secretly took action. With a flick of his wrist, he directly threw out a cold arrow that swiftly rushed towards Gu Man. Gu Man was shocked. This sneak attack was the key point. If he were to retreat now, he would definitely be defeated by the two people in front of him. Otherwise, he would have to take this arrow head-on. Ding! Just as the arrow was about to hit. However, there was a crisp sound. The teacup lid spun rapidly. It actually used the strength of the ceramic to send the spinning cold arrow flying. What? When Su Tianfeng saw this, his gaze instantly turned cold as he looked in the direction of Li Zongjio. Who was this person that actually dared to compete with him? Su Tianfeng. However, when Su Tianfeng looked over, he didn't see Li Zongjio. Instead, he saw a teacup without a lid flying towards him and continuously enlarging. Bang! The teacup collided with his forehead and instantly shattered. The impact wasn't very strong. However, the tea in the cup spilled all over Su Tianfeng's forehead. Not to mention the river of water on his face, his meticulously styled hairstyle was also ruined by this splash of tea. However, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that there was a sticky liquid on his head. Li Zongjio actually spat a mouthful of phlegm in the tea. How could there be such a disgusting person? This made Su Tianfeng, who was seriously obsessed with cleanliness, even want to shave his hair. It wasn't impossible for him to even cut off his scalp. This was because it was really too disgusting. You're courting death. Kill that brat for me. Kill that brat for me. The black-faced middle-aged man and Bai Baqiang's aura shook and sent Gu Man flying. At the same time, they directly rushed towards Li Zongjio. The two of them stood on the left and right. However, Li Zongjio still calmly sat in the same place and didn't move. Stop! Just as the two of them were about to capture Li Zongjio, a stern shout came from afar. The head of the Bai family, Bai Wuheng, raised his hand and a surge of Yuan power directly bound the two of them from dozens of meters away. At the same time, his wrists shook and forced the two of them back. Chapter 51. Bai Wuheng's move had been timely. Bai Wuheng had only heard of Li Zongjio's affairs. However, he knew the gravity of the situation. Putting aside Li Zongjio's strength, The fact that he could command a marshal meant that Li Zhongjiu's background and identity were not simple. If Li Zhongjiu died here, the consequences would be terrifying. Bai Wuheng had just received the news. The old master of the Gu clan, Gu Xuanwu, seemed to have been cured by a mysterious youth. Now, Gu Xuanwu had returned to full health. Looking at Gu Man behind Li Zhongjiu, Bai Wuheng wondered what kind of relationship he had with the Gu clan for Gu Man to come personally to protect him. As long as the Gu clan could continuously send people into the Xuanwu army, the Xuanwu army would continue to exist. That way, he would be able to guarantee that the Gu clan would continue to have descendants. Moreover, within Luoxia City, no one would dare to make a move. Thus, the Gu clan didn't need to curry favor with any other clan. However, Gu Man, who was most likely to become a member of the Xuanwu army, had become Li Zhongjiu's personal bodyguard, just like a hired thug. This meant that the Gu clan owed a debt of gratitude to Li Zhongjiu. The person who had cured Gu Xuanwu of his hidden illness for many years was actually Li Zhongjiu. Bai Wuheng's eyes flashed as he immediately understood everything. Then, he looked at the youth called Su Tianfeng that Bai Wuheng had brought with him. Just now, Bai Wuheng had used his own connections to quickly investigate Su Tianfeng's background. Su Tianfeng had actually established a relationship with the #1 business alliance group in Flying Cloud City. Now, the Su family only needed a sum of money to enter the business alliance group and become a member of the business alliance. The merchant alliance was a monopoly. Wherever it went, not even a blade of grass would grow. Very few people could make an enemy out of the merchant alliance. It was just like how a lone alchemist couldn't possibly compete. In the entire apothecary alliance, there would always be someone stronger than you. And your own level will determine what kind of alliance you can enter. The standard of Sunset City could only be considered as the 3rd grade of the dynasty. Only a city with a merchant alliance could be considered a second-class city. Therefore, behind Su Tianfeng, there was a very terrifying possibility. By Wuhan, none of them could be offended. It was all his stupid son's fault. He actually came to provoke Li Zhongjiu. Patriarch, this person attacked the young master. Bai Bachang hurriedly said. He had no choice but to take action. If he didn't take action to protect the young master in such a situation, then Bai Wuheng might just chop off his hands and throw him out of the Bai family. Bai Wuheng nodded. The dark-faced middle-aged man glanced at Su Tianfeng. Su Tianfeng also knew that there was no chance to make a move now. Uncle Bai, I'm Su Tianfeng, Brother Bai's good friend. Su Tianfeng said politely. Initially, he wanted to use this white foal to introduce him, but he did not expect to meet him so quickly. Bai Wuhan also nodded faintly. Although the Su family behind Su Tianfeng was very likely to enter the Merchant Alliance, they hadn't yet. Everyone was about the same, not to mention that Bai Wuhan was also an elder. Li Zhongjiu, you came to my Bai family and injured my son. You have to give me an explanation for this. Bai Wuhan's aura wasn't very strong, so he said very politely at this time. It seemed like he was afraid that Li Zhongjiu would be involved, so he was probing. Let's not talk about this nonsense. The Li family and the Bai family will cooperate. The elixirs we refine will be handed over to you for sale. In addition, the Sun family's weapon pavilion will be handed over to you. We will charge a service fee for each transaction. You can decide the price yourself. Li Zhongjiu said slowly. Although this was a good strategic cooperation, Li Zhongjiu's words made Bai Wuhan's eyes flash coldly. His Bai family itself started in the sales industry, so they had quite a lot of experience in selling things. Therefore, the biggest auction in Luoxia City belonged to his Bai family. On the contrary, the production side was a weakness. However, according to Li Zhongjiu's words, his Bai family had become the sales agent of the Li family. Although there were advantages, there were also disadvantages. In the future, they would be labeled as the Li family, and even the Li family would have the initiative. This matter involves a lot of things. If young Master Li is interested in the cooperation, we can sit down and talk slowly. Bai Wuhan was not in a hurry. Once this kind of thing was decided, there was no room for regret. Look at me. Am I here to talk to you? If you don't agree, the Bai family will no longer have a foothold in Luoxia City. Li Zongjio said faintly. His tone was very arrogant. He was not afraid of biting his tongue. What kind of words did he say? It simply made people want to go up and slap him. You're just a young master raised by a clan. How dare you boast shamelessly in front of another clan that's on par with your clan that if you don't cooperate, you won't have a foothold in the clan. This was simply too arrogant. Even Su Tianfeng, who was standing at the side, could not stand such an arrogant style of acting. He felt that it was very uncomfortable. Is it because I haven't been to Luoxia City for too long? The frogs at the bottom of the well in the Luoxia City were really stupid. If such an arrogant and ignorant person walked out of the Luoxia City, he would be beaten to a pulp if he opened his mouth. Su Tianfeng was already regretting in his heart. Even if he came to find some investors, he should not have come to such a small place. What kind of people were these? Young Master Li, what do you mean by this? Don't tell me that my Bai family doesn't even have the power to dominate this city? Even the Sun family did not speak to me so arrogantly. If you want to control the lifeline of my Bai family, I'm afraid it's impossible with just a few words from you. If this is the intention of the Li family, does it mean that a war is about to break out? Bai Wuhan's face gradually relaxed. Although he knew that this day would definitely come after he heard that Li Zongjio had killed Sun Jinglei, he did not expect this day to come so quickly. For Li Zongjio to come here, he must have some backing behind him. Young Master Li, please calm down. My Bai family agrees to the conditions you just mentioned. However, my Bai family also has a condition. I wonder if young Master Li is willing to listen to it? Li Zongjio was prepared to leave and destroy the Bai family. However, this voice made Li Zongjio sit down for the time being. Bai family by Luoxia. The look in Su Tianfeng's eyes flickered, filled with desire. The reason why he had taken care of the Bai clan was because there was one person he couldn't forget about. Now, he wanted to get closer to her so he could get closer to her. Chapter 52. Go ahead. Li Zongjio said. The person in front of him was Bai Luoxia of the Bai family. When they were still in Luoxia City, Li Zongjio also secretly liked Bai Luoxia, a goddess-like figure. However, when they met again, Li Zongjio was already numb. After more than 3,000 years of experience, Li Zongjio had seen countless beauties turn into skeletons, which also proved that only strength was eternal. Therefore, Li Zongjio pursued strength for the rest of his life. He became the evil lord of the medicine saint. Bai Luoxia's appearance seemed to have eased the atmosphere a little. Bai Wuhan also looked at Bai Luoxia. In fact, Bai Wuhan also knew that the Li family was now flourishing. If there was a problem, it wouldn't be a problem to temporarily agree to deal with it. If it really didn't work, there was still a last resort, which was the City Lord Mansion's last resort. However, the City Lord was a cunning old man. If he didn't see the real benefits, he wouldn't relent. This could only be regarded as the last resort. If they really wanted to solve the problem at hand, they still needed to negotiate with Li Zongjio directly. All the products of the Li family will be handled by my Bai family. You and I will establish an alliance. The Li family will be the leader, and my Bai family will be the deputy leader. Bai Luoxia said. They were still talking about the monopoly, but in the next second, it directly became a state of cooperation between the two sides. If they formed an alliance, then the competitors in the business in the future would change from individual forces to collective strength. The enemies they faced would also be merchants from the alliance. In this way, the pressure would increase by at least 1,000 times. However, this was the only way for a family to become strong. In a slightly larger city, all the merchants would work together. If you didn't join them, you would only be eaten up by these behemoths. Becoming a member of this group would also give you a chance to save your life. As for the future development, it would depend on your own luck and level. There was no doubt about this. It was almost impossible to establish a business alliance with just two families leading the way. Moreover, Luoxia City had almost no value outside of the mountains. It was just a place where resources were scarce, so it was built to concentrate the population. There were no resources available. Su Tianfeng could not help but sneer in his heart. Country people were country people. It was impossible for these country people to know about the cruelty of the outside world. They thought that it was enough to think about it with their own brains. Originally, Su Tianfeng thought that Bai Luoxue had some talent. With some nurturing, she might become a very powerful figure. But now, it seemed that it was all for nothing. He was just a toad that had grown up at the bottom of the well. However, even if the soul was no longer interesting, the body could still be enjoyed. Such an exquisite face, coupled with the cold aura that she had possessed for many years, made Su Tianfeng's heart itch unbearably. He could not wait to pounce on her. Bai Wuheng glanced at Bai Luoxue. Obviously, Bai Luoxue wanted to seize this opportunity. Although they couldn't be on equal footing, they couldn't be too far apart from each other. Moreover, there was no other way to deal with this matter. The strength of the other party was right in front of them. Both of them were only after wealth. If they really wanted to fight, both sides would suffer heavy casualties in the end. This was not something that both parties wanted to see. Li Zongjio was a little surprised when he heard Bai Luoxue's words. Li Zongjio really wanted to establish his own business alliance. In his previous life, Li Zongjio's cultivation was profound, but in fact, he could not dominate the world. That was because there were still some powerful business alliances in the world. They became the first obstacle to an expert like Li Zongjio. Therefore, Li Zongjio also knew the power of a business alliance. It was not something that could be done with words. But with Bai Luoxue's talent, it might really be possible. As long as the Li family could prosper, Li Zongjio was willing to try any method. Well, I'll give you 1 year. If you can't meet the conditions to establish a business alliance within 1 year, then forget about it. Li Zongjio said. 1 year is enough. Bai Luoxue's mouth curved. Li Zongjio's vision was not just limited to the Luoxia city in front of him. If it was really only the Luoxia city, then if one became the lord of the Luoxia city, either the external forces would invade and resist, or the city lord mansion itself would make things difficult for him and suppress him. Only by establishing an alliance could he preserve these forces. If Master Bai can establish a business alliance in the future, please remember to call me. I will definitely come to congratulate you. But today, I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Such perfunctory words could be heard by anyone. Bai Luoxue didn't say anything. Since Su Tianfeng looked down on this kind of business, then it didn't matter. After all, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future to make Su Tianfeng regret it. He would sooner or later regret his foolish actions for looking down on others like a snob. Bai Wuhen didn't say anything. He didn't care about Su Tianfeng at all. At this moment, he was still thinking about what status his Bai family would have if the merchant union was established. What would Bai Wuhen's status be? What would he be able to gain from it? These were all very important things. Wait a minute. When did I say that you can leave? Li Zongjio said. The voice was clear and melodious, but it contained a faint murderous intent. Anyone who heard this would know that he was definitely not a kind person. He was here to cause trouble. The dark-faced middle-aged man also turned around and stood in front of Su Tianfeng, staring at Li Zongjio. At this moment, Gu Man, who had caught his breath, also stood behind Li Zongjio, confronting the dark-faced man. Just now, it was 2 against 1, but now the tables had turned. Not to mention 2 against 1, even if it was 1 against 1, Gu Man had absolute confidence that he could take down the dark-faced man in front of him. Even at this moment, he wanted to take action very much. Just now, the dark-faced middle-aged man took advantage of him and took advantage of him. Such a villain must be taught a lesson. What? You're just a young master of a small family. Do you want to keep me, Su Tianfeng, here? Open your eyes and look carefully. The one standing in front of you is the deacon of the Su family's outer court. Su Tianfeng, remember this. Su Tianfeng shouted sternly. With this kind of momentum, he wanted to leave an image of a tough man in front of Bai Luoxue. However, after hearing this, Bai Luoxue and Bai Wuhen took a step back tacitly, waiting for the next thing to happen. Chapter 53. In fact, Li Zongjio was an extremely low-key person. He was so low-key that even after he became famous, no one could recognize him when he walked on the streets. However, those who were familiar with Li Zongjio knew that Li Zongjio was not someone to be trifled with. Don't think that you can be arrogant and despotic in front of Li Zongjio just because you have some strength. Don't even think that you can trample on Li Zongjio's face. Otherwise, you'll end up in a very tragic state. Li Zongjio hadn't met someone like this for a long time. He wanted to find someone who liked to take advantage of him. Li Zongjio wasn't strong yet, but these people thought that they were infallible. If it was in the past, Li Zongjio wouldn't have anything to say. You have the capital to be arrogant. But now, Li Zongjio was here. Even if you're arrogant, you have to restrain yourself. It seems that I have to establish my prestige. I'll deal with this person personally. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Gu Man immediately understood and charged towards the dark-faced middle-aged man. Boom. Since he wanted to take action, he must not leave him a way out. He must subdue the enemy with every move. Therefore, the middle-aged man was stunned when he saw the terrifying power that burst out from Gu Man's hand. Could it be that these guys are serious? How could they be so vicious? If they fell out with the Su family, they'll suffer the consequences. Although there was a saying that a strong dragon could not suppress a snake in its old haunts. However, Su Tianfeng was very low-key this time. He only brought one guard with him. However, Su Tianfeng didn't expect that he would be offended by a country bumpkin like Li Zongjio when he came to this small Luoxia city. Since the Bai family was unreliable, Su Tianfeng had other ways to deal with them. Originally, this was an opportunity for the Bai family to soar into the sky. You were short-sighted and gave up. Su Tianfeng couldn't be blamed. He didn't intend to argue with these people. But this little Li Zongjio, this kind of person who should have been trampled on by him, actually dared to offend him. Not to mention a young master of a small family, even if he wanted to destroy your Li family, it wouldn't be a problem at all. Gu Man was the first to attack, and the black-faced middle-aged man also charged forward. Boom. The auras of the two continued to collide with each other. Powerful auras continued to be released, causing the airflow in the room to become extremely chaotic. Many walls were directly blasted apart. Just this battle alone had cost them quite a lot of money. A country bumpkin like you wants to touch me? I'll show you the difference between an ant and a genius. As Su Tianfeng's voice fell, the yuan power in his body also burst out with a loud bang. Boom. Powerful origin energy whistled over like a surging river, and Bai Wuhan blocked by Luoxue behind him. The white horse lying on the ground was lifted up by the White Lord's spear. Li Zongjio stood in place and welcomed the impact, but his feet did not move an inch. First grade yuan master. Su Tianfeng was actually able to cultivate to such a level at such a young age. Bai Wuhan was instantly shocked when he saw this scene. Clearly, he was extremely shocked by Su Tianfeng's talent. At such a young age, he had already broken through to the Yuan Master level. It was extremely likely that he would step into the Yuan General level in the future. Just Su Tianfeng from the Su family was already so powerful. If it was another direct descendant of the Su family, how powerful would he be? There was indeed a huge gap between a family in a second-grade city and a family in a third-grade city. Bai Wuhan looked at Su Tianfeng and faintly felt some regret in his heart. However, he was still uncertain. After all, Li Zongjio's strength was not a boast. When did the standard of an ant become so low? Li Zongjio smiled in disdain. The ant he was talking about was Su Tianfeng before him. However, from Li Zongjio's mouth, it seemed that Su Tianfeng's ability was not even at the level of an ant. This was simply the greatest insult. Let me see how long you can be stubborn. Ironback Mountain Fist. Su Tianfeng roared in a low voice. His fists were instantly covered with a wave of golden yuan power. It was the metal attribute yuan power. Su Tianfeng looked thin and weak, but the yuan power he cultivated was so domineering. In addition to the aura around his body, Su Tianfeng's aura was already comparable to Gu Man and the others. Moreover, the penetrating power of the metal attribute yuan power. It was even more intimidating. This fist carried the whistling power of a golden spear. A pair of bare fists was actually able to give off the feeling of an iron fist. From Su Tianfeng's point of view, if Li Zongjio was hit by this fist, It was enough to directly turn him into a fool. Just as Su Tianfeng's fist was about to land on Li Zongjio's body, Li Zongjio directly clenched his fist, raised his hand, and collided with Su Tianfeng's fist head-on. This fist. Li Zongjio did not even use any yuan power. Boom. Ah! Su Tianfeng suddenly screamed. His entire body flew out, smashing into the door and falling down. His right hand hung on the ground, as if in unbearable pain. Upon closer inspection, Su Tianfeng's arm had already formed an extremely twisted state from the collision just now. Su Tianfeng's hand was directly fractured by Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio put down his fist, and the golden dragon pattern in the yuan pearl also returned to normal. Golden dragon pattern. Increase strength. At the same time as the increase in strength, Li Zongjio also used the battle techniques he was most proficient in. After all, he was an old monster that had lived for more than 3,000 years. When to punch, where the fist would land, it was all very clear to him. Therefore, in front of Li Zongjio, Su Tianfeng's moves were like hundreds of flaws in front of him. Young master! Seeing this, the middle-aged man with a black face suddenly roared. However, with this roar, Su Tianfeng opened his eyes and saw Li Zongjio suddenly rushing in front of him. Then, Li Zongjio raised his foot and directly kicked him. Bang! Li Zongjio kicked Su Tianfeng's head, and then Su Tianfeng's head was dragged on the ground for dozens of meters. It directly dragged a long trace. If you want to talk about ants, then you are really far from it. Li Zongjio casually pulled out a piece of wood from the door that had just been smashed. As a yuan-shi expert, Su Tianfeng was more resistant to beatings. Although he was seriously injured, he had not completely lost consciousness. Although he did not know what was going on, he felt that Li Zongjio was approaching him. You? Li Zongjio grabbed the piece of wood in his hand and suddenly stabbed it into Su Tianfeng's stomach. Blood immediately splattered out. Kill me. Many by family guards heard the commotion and quickly rushed over, just in time to see Li Zongjio killing people with a piece of wood in his hand without a change in expression. When Su Tianfeng still had his last breath, Li Zongjio directly stretched out his hand, and with a bang, stabbed it into Su Tianfeng's dantian and grabbed the origin bead out. As the origin bead left the body, Su Tianfeng's head tilted and he stopped breathing. Calmly, he wiped the blood on his hand on Su Tianfeng's clothes. The two of you stop fighting. That middle-aged man with a black face, take him back and tell the Su family to prepare the compensation. I, Li Zongjio, will come in a few days. Chapter 54. Li Zongjio's voice faded away. The two people who were fighting immediately retreated. In the previous exchange, the two of them could be said to be equally matched. When the dark-faced middle-aged man saw Su Tianfeng's body, he was stunned. This Su Tianfeng was killed just like that? He couldn't believe it. He was the youngest deacon of the Su family. In the future, he would enter the inner gate and become an elder. But here he was killed by Li Zongjio. He was a young man with a bright future. But now he ruined his future. Most importantly, he didn't know how he offended Li Zongjio. Just because of a quarrel, he said a few words. Just because of this, he directly took someone's life. This was too scary. Thinking of this, the dark-faced middle-aged man didn't dare to say anything more. He didn't even dare to say a few harsh words. He was afraid that after he said it, he wouldn't be able to walk out of the Bai family. Su Tianfeng was just a guard, but he was evenly matched with him. If this young man joined the fray, he would end up in a worse state. Li Zongjio. The dark-faced middle-aged man deeply remembered this name in his heart. He couldn't let this matter go just like that. And if he remembered this name, it would be easier for him to report back. Give him a body bag. Bai Luoxue said faintly. From this moment onwards, the Bai family and the Li family were on the same side. Although Bai Luoxue didn't know what ability Li Zongjio had, it was obviously inappropriate for Li Zongjio to fight for his territory in such a hurry. But now, the Su family was enough to test Li Zongjio's strength. Although the Su family was powerful. But as long as it was a family, there would be enemies. If the Su family came to Luoxia City to make trouble, it would be a thankless task. From Li Zongjio's words, it seemed that the Su family was going to compensate them. Was that even possible? At this moment, Bai Tianju was hiding behind Bai Bachang. When Li Zongjio stabbed the wood into Su Tianfeng, he was so scared that he didn't dare to speak. When had he ever seen such a scene? Such bloody violence, so direct. Bai Tianju was so scared that his face turned pale. Although it could be said that Bai Luoxue had seen the world, this Li Zongjio was about the same age as her, yet he was able to do these things without batting an eyelid. This alone was impossible for Bai Luoxue. Could it be that this fellow had a heart of stone? I hope that your Bai clan can see the situation clearly. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, he turned around and left. As for Bai Tianju, Li Zongjio had never placed him in his eyes. He had only given him an appropriate lesson. When Li Zongjio and Gu Man left the Bai clan, Bai Tianju relaxed. Bai Wuhan felt his whole body relax. Just now, his whole body was in a tense state. This made Bai Wuhan's heart extremely nervous. He directly killed an outer court deacon of the Su family in front of them. In Flying Cloud City, the Su family wasn't a simple family. The strength he possessed was definitely more powerful than the 4 great clans of Luoxia City. This Li Zongjio is indeed a monstrous talent. Bai Wuhan sighed. Not to mention anything else, just this aura alone was enough to show that he would definitely be an extraordinary person in the future. But this Li Zongjio has only been here for a few days. He has made too many enemies, Bai Wuhan couldn't help but say. Not to mention the Sun family that had been beaten to a pulp. Since they had defeated the Sun family, why did they have to deal with Wang Lu? If they didn't release Wang Lu, the Alchemist Alliance of Northern Medicine City would definitely come for revenge. Of course, if they let Wang Lu go, it might be like releasing a tiger back to the mountain. However, there must be a way to resolve the issue. Li Zongjio chose the most direct and most serious method. Wang Lu's matter had not been resolved yet. Now, they had provoked the Su family again. If they didn't give an explanation for the loss of one life, they wouldn't just let it go like this. It wasn't over yet. Bai Luoxue also had a headache. This Li Zongjio was indeed very troublesome. By the way, what is the city lord's opinion? Bai Wuhan asked. This matter was handed over to Bai Luoxue to handle. The city lord's advisor, Ying Lai, had come yesterday and taken away a lot of benefits. Bai Luoxue shook her head helplessly. The city lord only wants to find treasures to help his precious daughter. With Yi Tianshui's talent, it's already very difficult for him to enter the martial world pavilion. Doesn't the city lord know that? Although it was already very impressive to be able to enter the martial world pavilion, it didn't mean anything. Over the years, many people had entered the martial world pavilion. However, the number of people who could successfully graduate was very small. In the end, most of them were persuaded to leave. They learned a lot of skills, but in the end, they couldn't be crowned with the name of the Martial World Pavilion. If it's necessary, I can only hand over my family's collection. Bai Wuhan shook his head and said, this was indeed a last resort. However, at least it gave him a way out. Perhaps there's no need to go that far. Li Zongjio's potential is far beyond this. Oh? What do you mean? That day at the Medicine Refinery Square, Li Zongjio brought a general-level expert. It was this person who stopped Mu Yuan. Does the family head know the identity of this person? Bai Luoxue said. Who is it? Misty Snow Pellet Sect, Long Herb Peak Master, Lin Song. Bai Luoxue spoke word by word. Every single one of her identities caused Bai Wuhan to be shocked. Lin Song didn't deliberately hide his identity. It only took a little investigation to find out Lin Song's identity. Lin Song had been here for a long time. It was already considered slow to find out Lin Song's identity now. What? The shock in Bai Wuhan's heart couldn't be calmed down for a long time. The strength of the Misty Snow Pellet sect was enough to surpass the entire Luoxia city. The strength of these sects was far stronger than the families below. The strength of the sect wasn't the main point. However, the disciples who joined the sect more or less had some families behind them. Once the power of these families was integrated, for example, the people of the Sun family had offended the disciples of the Misty Snow Pellet sect. However, the Sun family and the Misty Snow Pellet sect had no relationship. The Bai family and the Li family both had disciples in the Misty Snow Pellet sect. The Misty Snow Pellet sect only needed to give an order and the two families would turn their spearheads to deal with the Sun family. This was the existence of the sect's influence. Under a sect, there were at least 20 to 30 families supporting it. Of course, the sect itself was also extremely tyrannical. The Long-Her Peak was only a peak that specialized in refining elixirs. The real battle wasn't on the Long-Her Peak. It was like the Li family's alchemy hall couldn't represent the Li family's fighting strength. The Misty Snow Pellet sect had two main fighting peaks. The Crimson Afterglow Peak was like the Blazing Peak. Their fighting strength was extremely tyrannical. Any elder who came down would be stronger than the family heads of these families. The peak master of the Long-Her Peak must be very experienced. How could he fall behind Li Zhongjio and become a loyal servant? Could it be that there were still some things that they didn't know about here? This Li Zhongjio is really not simple. Bai Wuhan sucked in a breath of cold air. Chapter 55. It had been a while since he returned from Long-Her Peak. Counting the days, it seemed that the peak test of the Foggy Snow Alchemy sect was about to begin. In his previous life, Li Zhongjio had already reached the peak. In fact, Li Zhongjio had long despised these children's games. However, in his previous life, Li Zhongjio had wanted to truly stand out in this peak test before he had encountered such a disaster. The Foggy Snow Alchemy sect is still too small. There are three major sects in the Xingyan dynasty: the Martial Tide Pavilion, the Sacred Flame Sword Pavilion, and the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. In my previous life, with my cultivation and reputation, I was able to enter the Martial Tide Pavilion and the Sacred Flame Sword Pavilion to gain enlightenment. Later on, I was able to find the method to break through to the Saint level with 4 dragons. However, even I, who had reached the Sovereign level, was unable to enter the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor to obtain the secrets within. In this life, I would like to see what kind of secrets there are in the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. Li Zhongjio meditated as he thought to himself. In his previous life, Li Zhongjio could enter and leave the Martial Tide Pavilion and the Sacred Flame Sword Pavilion of the Xingyan dynasty as he wished. Naturally, he had found some supreme techniques and studied them thoroughly. Therefore, he had found the method to break through to the Saint level with 4 dragons. In his previous life, he had failed to break through to the Saint realm. Although he was still alive, it was considered a failure. Therefore, this time, Li Zhongjio wanted the Li family to be passed down forever. Therefore, he had to break through to the Saint realm with his own cultivation. If ordinary people knew about Li Zhongjio's aspiration, they would definitely think that Li Zhongjio was crazy. The Saint realm itself was a legendary existence. It was even made up by some people. It did not exist at all. Above the Yuan General was the Yuan Ancestor realm. Above the Yuan Ancestor realm was the Yuan King, who could call himself a king. When one's cultivation reached this realm, even in the Xingyan dynasty, he would enjoy the treatment of a prince. Above him was the primitive emperor. His strength surpassed even that of the Yellow Springs. Even if he were to meet the emperor of the Xingyan dynasty, there would be no need for him to greet him respectfully. The two of them would be on equal footing. That was the supremacy realm. Once one reached this realm, there would basically be no restrictions in this world as long as one did not seek death. He could live a carefree life and transcend the mortal world. In his previous life, Li Zhongjio had reached this level. He could freely enter and exit the Imperial Martial Pavilion and the Grand Feast Sword Pavilion. However, he could not enter the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. It was not that the Tianshan Medicine Mansion was bold. It was because of the restriction in the Tianshan Medicine Mansion. Even Li Zhongjio could not enter with his cultivation at that time. One could imagine how many secrets were hidden inside. It was said that only the disciples of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor could enter. At that time, Li Zhongjio did not believe it and wanted to find trouble with the Tianshan Medicine Manor after breaking through. However, it was already too late. When he opened his eyes again, he was already back here. In his previous life, Li Zhongjio had already reached the peak of the realm. If he entered the Tianshan medicine manor again, they would not dare to accept him. However, it was different this time. If he could enter the Tianshan medicine manor earlier, with Li Zhongjiu's talent, he would definitely be of help to the Li family. In the past few hundred years, there had never been a Yuan ancestor realm figure in Luoxia City. Li Zhongjiu still wanted to break through to the sage realm. It was simply a fool's dream. Father's fire lion art is a third-grade elemental art. However, its power is still too weak and there are too many flaws. If I want to make the family stronger, I have to solve the root problem. The cultivation of the elemental art cannot be delayed. Li Zhongjiu thought about it and copied down a 6th-grade elemental art that he had collected in his previous life. Sky Blaze Lion Art. 6th-grade intermediate elemental art. Li Zhongjiu wrote down the first half of the art in one breath. As for the second half, he could only take it out after he had finished cultivating the first half. Otherwise, such an item would be enough to bring disaster to the Li family. This was an extremely terrifying matter. Therefore, even Li Zhongjiu did not dare to be careless. Even the imperial family might not be able to take out many 6th-grade elemental arts. With this Sky Blaze Lion art, with his father's talent, it would not be a problem for him to reach the Yuan ancestor realm within 2 years. 2 years to create a Yuan ancestor realm expert. Even if some of the people from the large sects heard about this, they would only laugh heartily. They would think that Li Zhongjiu was living in his own delusion. Not to mention Yuan ancestor realm experts. Even a Yuan general realm expert would find it difficult to succeed without 40 to 50 years of bitter cultivation. As for the Yuan ancestor realm, besides one's talent, one's elemental art level had to be met, and one's cultivation resources had to be kept up. Without the support of a strong backup, one would not be able to break through. When Li Zhongjiu handed this elemental art to Li Tianqing was stunned. Li Tianqing's entire being was shocked. This elemental art? Where did you get this elemental art? This elemental art is hundreds of times more profound than our Li family's fire lion art. It should be thousands of times more profound. I got this by accident, but it's only average. You can cultivate it first. When I find the rest, I will give it to you, Li Zhongjiu said with a smile. Although he did not want to admit that the level of the fire lion art was not high enough, it was the truth. Thousands of times more profound? What kind of concept was that? He did not even dare to think about it. You have so many secrets, kid, Li Tianqing couldn't help but say. But soon after, Li Tianqing's gaze turned solemn. How are we going to deal with Wang Lu's matter? Wang Lu's disciple, Chang Feng, has already fled back to Northern Medicine City. Based on his footsteps, there will definitely be people from the Northern Medicine Alliance coming here tomorrow or the day after. Li Tianqing said in a deep voice. Father, what kind of power do you think our Li family needs to be able to withstand this wave of attacks? The people from the Northern Medicine Alliance will definitely be led by a Yuan general expert. If they want to pressure us, there will be at least 2 Yuan general experts. If our Li family can have 2 Yuan general experts to pave the way, we will naturally have nothing to fear. Li Tianqing said. The Northern Medicine Alliance was one thing, but the people from the Northern Medicine Alliance deliberately came here to cause trouble and wanted to take back the people without saying anything. It would not be so easy. If they did not give an explanation, they would not be able to take them away. If they wanted them to take the Li family seriously, they would need to show their strength. Otherwise, they would not be able to take the Li family seriously, right? 2 Yuan general experts. His Li clan didn't even have a single origin general realm expert. Therefore, this was also what Li Tianqing was worried about. Otherwise, when those people came, his Li family could only admit defeat. No problem, Li Zhongjiu said. Li Tianqing was confused. What did he mean by, no problem? Then where were they supposed to find 2 martial-level experts? However, Li Zhongjiu did not say too much. He just smiled and left without saying anything. This made Li Tianqing want to take out his belt and give Li Zhongjiu a good beating. However, when he thought about it, Li Zhongjiu was no longer a child. Moreover, if Li Zhongjiu wanted to fight with him, he might not be able to beat this kid. This kid is so mysterious. I don't know what kind of curse he got himself into. Li Tianqing muttered in his heart. However, he really liked this Sky Blaze Lion King technique. Although it was only an incomplete version, the power and value it contained were immeasurable. Li Tianqing will also soar to the sky. Chapter 56. Li Zongjio also needed to train and consolidate his cultivation. At the same time, in the pill hall, Li Zongjio had already handed over some of the improved pill formulas and some of the simpler pill formulas that he had invented later to Li Juyan. When Li Juyan received these pill formulas, he was as happy as a 60-year-old child. However, these were just some of the lowest grade pill formulas that Li Zongjio had casually copied down. If he wanted the Li family to refine higher grade pills, he would need to strengthen his own training and focus on nurturing new disciples. If I were to teach them myself, it would be a waste of my time. Now that I think about it, that guy should not be famous yet. Right now, he should be fooling around somewhere. Li Zongjio pinched his fingers and calculated the time. It was still early. He could put this matter aside for the time being. Nightfall. In the pitch-black night sky of Luoxia City, a figure suddenly appeared and flew directly into the Li family. Li Zongjio, who was meditating with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. A candle flame on the table in front of him was lit up. Bang! A figure covered in blood fell into the room and instantly fell to the ground. Lin Song. Li Zongjio was shocked when he saw the person who fell in front of him. Who is it? Gu Man, who was guarding outside the room, immediately rushed in. Li Zongjio waved his hand to signal for silence. Gu Man did not say anything. When he saw the heavily injured body, he immediately went forward to support him. Such heavy injuries! Who did this to him? Gu Man looked at the wounds on Lin Song's body. There were many sharp sword wounds that pierced through his chest and waist. If not for Lin Song's abundant yuan power, he would not have been able to hold on until now. Li Zongjio came in front of Lin Song. After a brief inspection, he stretched out his hand and directly landed a palm on Lin Song's body. The yuan power in his body also rushed into Lin Song's body with a bang. Yuan power wrapped around a few figures. With a swoosh, they directly flew out of Lin Song's body. A sharp force directly landed on the wall. Whoosh! Bang! There are actually so many iron plates. This is a unique hidden weapon. Gu Man was shocked. The elder's cultivation level was obviously above his. Even Lin Song could not dodge so many attacks. If it was him, he would have suffered an even more tragic fate. Cough cough. The hidden weapon in Lin Song's body was removed and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Only now did he manage to open his eyes. What's the situation? Li Zongjio asked. Black Zen sect? Lin Song was a little emotional. Speak slowly. I found out that Li Changjiang has teamed up with the Black Zen sect to take control of Sunset City. He even wants to plot against the Fog Snow Pill sect. My granddaughter is also being controlled by these people. Lin Song roared in a low voice. Lin Song's eyes were red. Although he was seriously injured, he could not calm down when he thought of his granddaughter in danger. He had to save her. What? Black Zen sect? Black Zen sect? Isn't it a small sect with only a few hundred people? How could they be so bold? Gu Man furrowed his brows. Li Zongjio also furrowed his brows. This was not a simple situation. There were layers upon layers of exploitation. It seemed that there was a conspiracy behind this. He did not expect these people to have been plotting against the Li family for so long. The Li family was just a stumbling block on the other side's path. It was just a force to be eradicated. These people really thought too highly of themselves. It doesn't matter if you're from the Black Zen sect or the White Zen sect. Since you want to go against the Li family, then wait for your death. Li Zongjio snorted coldly, then looked at the seriously injured Lin Song. Suddenly, a soft sound came from outside the window. Li Zongjio's sharp senses sensed it and he immediately looked over. Want to run? Li Zongjio's figure flew out and chased after the figure. Gu Man wanted to chase after him, but he realized that Li Zongjio's figure had already disappeared. Fuck so fast. He wanted to help, but there was no chance. Seeing that Lin Song was seriously injured, he could only find someone to help treat him. Li Zongjio chased after the black-clothed man. In a few flashes he left the Luo Xia city. The other party's speed was not slow at all. In addition, his yuan energy was denser than Li Zongjio's. Want to run away from me? Get down here. He gathered his aura in the air and abruptly rushed forward. Immediately, a flying knife formed from energy shot towards the other party. Wherever the flying knife flew, it was as if it had been struck by lightning. It was also where the other party's next step was. The other party never thought that Li Zongjio could see through his footwork. Bang! The energy knife instantly pierced through the other party's ankle and his body fell from the sky. Plop! He fell into the forest below. Li Zongjio's figure landed and looked down at the other party. You're from the Black Zen sect? Li Zongjio had never heard of the Black Zen sect in his previous life. He guessed that it was some small sect. But to have such a movement technique, it meant that there must be experts in the Black Zen sect. Cough cough, kid, your time of death has come. The black-clothed man who landed on the ground sneered. He covered his wound and actually climbed up to escape. Just as Li Zongjio was about to give chase, he heard a few whistling sounds coming from the surroundings. Boom, boom, boom. A few auras suddenly exploded from the surroundings and surrounded Li Zongjio. It turned out that this was a trap that had been set up beforehand. It was to lure Li Zongjio over. Hee, Li Zongjio, haven't you been looking for me? Haven't I been good to you? Why did you suddenly jump out and bite me? A deep voice sounded behind him. Li Changjiang. Li Zongjio turned around. The other party's 3 experts had sealed off Li Zongjio's escape route. Now that Li Changjiang had appeared, he was the real mastermind. There was one thing that Li Changjiang did not understand. Why did Li Zongjio have such a big reaction? He was just a teenager, what could he know? Moreover, on Long Medicine Peak, Li Zongjio should have died. But now, he was still standing here, safe and sound. The one who died was his own son. This made Li Changjiang even more confused. Could it be that someone was helping Li Zongjio from behind? Otherwise, with Li Zongjio's aptitude, how could Li Changjiang not know? It turns out that you didn't collude with the Sun family, but these people. Even though he had been reborn, Li Zongjio did not expect that Li Changjiang was colluding with someone else. Obviously, the plan in his previous life went smoothly, so these people did not appear. They had been manipulating everything from behind the scenes. But in this life, all the plans were destroyed by Li Zongjio. They wanted to manipulate Lu Shun to become the peak master of Long Medicine Peak. They wanted to manipulate Li Changjiang to become the master of the Li family. But who knew that Li Zongjio would destroy it? So these people could not wait any longer, and they could not help but walk to the front from behind. This was also to make Li Zongjio. He found something strange. To be able to play such a big game of chess, it seems that the person behind you is not simple. A cold light flashed in Li Zongjio's eyes. No matter what kind of game of chess you wanted to play, if you wanted to place a piece on Li Zongjio's head, then you should be prepared to have your hands cut off by Li Zongjio. Since you are not willing to say, then I will get him out sooner or later. But now, for the prosperity of my Li family, Zongjio, you should go to hell first. Li Changjiang sneered. Since his son was dead, then Li Zongjio should not think about living. Suddenly, the aura of the 3 men in black was released. 3 Peak Yuan Masters. I have already been there. Chapter 57. The experts of the 3 Black Zen sect swarmed over. 2 of them rushed to the front and performed the Heaven Luo Palm technique. That person was walking at the back, and what he was using was the Earth Net Fist. It almost cut off Li Zongjio's retreat. But Li Zongjio never thought of retreating. Since you want to be a mantis trying to stop a chariot, I'll show you what despair is. Blood Palm. The blood dragon tattoo in his body was released. Instantly, killing intent rose within 100 meters. The terrifying blood dragon tattoo was released. Li Zongjio seemed to have turned into a killing god. Boom. He rushed forward with a palm and was actually evenly matched with the 3 people in front of him. No one had the upper hand. Li Changjiang, who was not far away, was shocked when he saw this scene. Just the three of them were enough to destroy the Li family. But now, they were blocked by Li Zhongjie alone. Originally, the Li family's strength was not strong, but Li Zhongjie brought back a powerhouse at the origin general level. So, Li Changjiang could only escape. But today, Lin Cong was defeated, so naturally, there was no threat. At the same time, Li Changjiang brought so many people here tonight to kill Li Zhongjie. Even if he had to kill Li Tianqing, it wouldn't be a problem as long as he had the opportunity. As Li Zhongjie's palm landed, the footwork beneath his feet quickly began to move as well. Li Zhongjie's figure appeared in the middle of the three people. They rarely encountered someone who would jump into their encirclement. That was hilarious. He did not even have the slightest battle awareness. It seemed that he was just a small fry in battle. But Li Zhongjie quickly used his strength to show these people what a small fry was. Ha! Li Zhongjie threw out a punch. Although the punch seemed weak, it sent the person in front of him flying when it came into contact with him. Boom! Third brother. The third brother that was sent flying was not weak. However, close combat was his weakness. Therefore, he was usually placed at the end and used as the finishing blow. However, he did not expect that Old Third would be discovered by Li Zhongjie. Moreover, Li Zhongjie stepped forward and sent Old Third flying. The third brother's head fell to the ground. Even with the Yuan power of the Peak Master Realm protecting his body, he almost fainted from the fall. He lay on the ground for a long time, but still did not wake up. Blackheart Fist. Another set of fist techniques was executed. When the two black-robed men found out that their third brother was still alive, they chose to capture Li Zhongjie first. If they allowed Li Zhongjie to roam free and unfettered, they would lose a lot of face. Since Yi Shiwen had injured their brother, they naturally had to settle the score. The Yuan power undulations contained within the Black Heart Fist were rather strong. The golden dragon rune within Li Zhongjie's body trembled, as a wave of energy continuously gathered on Li Zhongjie's fist. The moment Li Zhongjie punched out, it was enough to send the person in front of him flying. A domineering force was released. With one punch, one of the black-robed men's protective Yuan power instantly collapsed. After that, Li Zhongjie did not stop, and sent his opponent flying with a baleful blood palm. In the blink of an eye, two of the three Peak Master Realm experts were defeated. The third person finally faced Li Zhongjie seriously. Li Zhongjie's attack was so domineering. Although his Yuan power was not very dense, the timing of his attack and the strength he used were rather accurate. What he displayed in this battle. He did not seem like a teenager at all. Who exactly are you? The black-robed man asked in a deep voice. They had investigated all the geniuses within a radius of 100 miles. To be able to exchange blows with three Peak Master Realm experts at such a young age was indeed very rare. The few that could be counted were definitely not like Li Zhongjie. I'm your grandfather, Li Zhongjie said. He did not intend to let the last person go. He directly used his footwork and rushed forward. His footwork immediately gave the black-robed man a strong sense of danger. Not good. The black-robed man's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, Li Zhongjie had already caught up. Yuan power explosion. Immediately, a terrifying aura exploded from the black-robed man's body. This was a move that would only be used when facing someone of the same level and could not defeat the other party. It was a move that would harm oneself by 1,000 to injure the enemy by 800. The black-robed man's injuries would be even more serious. However, if he seriously injured the person in front of him, he still had a chance. He could allow his companion to take advantage of the situation and complete the mission. Boom! Intense Yuan Qi bombarded him. However, Li Zhongjie's figure fell behind the black-robed man. You want to die together with me? You're still far from it. Li Zhongjie directly pressed his hand on the black-robed man's head. Then, a terrifying suction force exploded from his palm. The black-robed man immediately knelt on the ground. The blood in his body continuously flowed into Li Zhongjie's palm, forming a blood bead. Retreat! When the two black-robed men who were seriously injured saw this scene, they immediately knew that Li Zhongjie's strength was tyrannical. Even their leader's Yuan power explosion could not hurt Li Zhongjie. Clearly, Li Zongjiu's strength was not as simple as it seemed. He did not seem like a teenager at all. You want to run? Li Zongjiu once again caught up with another black-robed man. This was the third black-robed man who had been sent flying by Li Zongjiu's punch and hit his head on the ground. Now that Li Zongjiu's figure landed, the third black-robed man had just regained his senses. What are you doing? However, Li Zongjiu did not waste time talking. He stretched out his palm and directly cut the throat of the black-robed man in front of him. Cough cough, bang. In the end, the black-robed man clutched his broken throat and could not say anything. Then, he directly knelt on the ground and lost all signs of life. The second brother of the three black-robed men had already flown into the distance. He stood on top of a tree and stared at Li Zongjiu, who was opposite him. Li Zongjiu lifted the third black-robed man with one hand and the corners of his mouth curved into a cold smile. Then, the 5 fingers directly pierced into the third black-robed man's head and 5 bright red finger holes appeared. Although the third black-robed man was dead, this extreme torture still caused his body to feel pain. His body could not help but twitch. Damn it! Seeing this scene, the anxiety and anger in the second black-robed man's heart exploded like a firecracker. He hammered his fist on the tree trunk beside him, causing the leaves to fly. However, all of this was useless because just by looking at the scene in front of him, if he were to rush up directly, he would fall for Li Zongjiu's provocation. Li Zongjiu, right? Just you wait. The black-robed man gritted his teeth, turned around, and flew away, disappearing into the forest. That night, Li Zongjiu's evil and murderous smile. It was engraved in the black-robed man's heart. Using the third black-robed man's vital energy, Li Zongjiu once again refined a blood bead and stored it away. Li Changjiang had already left when he saw that the situation was not good. After confirming that there were no other living creatures around, Li Zongjiu leaned against the tree trunk and coughed softly. Damn it, my yuan energy is still too weak. I can't even withstand this kind of impact. At such a close distance, Li Zongjiu could not withstand the explosion of yuan energy. However, if the third black-robed man took the initiative to attack, Li Zongjiu had plenty of ways to kill him. However, now that the crisis was over, Li Zongjiu still needed to find a place to heal. His chest was already dyed red with blood. If it was an ordinary person, he would have already fainted from the pain. However, with Li Zongjiu's many years of experience, this little injury was nothing. Immediately, Li Zongjiu found a cave. He refined the 2 blood beads he obtained tonight. Chapter 58. Early morning. Luoxia City, Li family. Li Tianqing led a group of people to the door. The old master of the Gu family, Gu Xuanwu, actually came to visit in person. Behind him were 20 strong Gu family disciples. If this situation wasn't handled well, then there might be a fierce battle. Therefore, the people of the Li family were very nervous. Old Master Gu, what brings you to our Li family? Greetings, patriarchally. We have agreed to the young master of the Li family's promise and specially came to your residence to serve as guards. Gu Xuanwu said with a smile. Is that so? Li Tianqing was shocked when he heard this. When Li Zongjiu did things, he was very secretive. He did not even greet him. However, they didn't know what method Li Zongjiu had used to invite the old man of the Gu family to personally send him over. How much face did he have to do this? Then, old master, who are we going to let train these people? According to the conditions, I will naturally be the one to train them personally. In the future, the safety of the Li family's courtyard will be handed over to the disciples of the Gu family. Gu Xuanwu said bluntly. Since he had already decided, there was nothing to hide. He directly said it out loud. There was nothing to be embarrassed about. This is also what Li Zongjiu said? Old master, just you wait. I'll go beat him up right now. Gu Xuanwu could be said to be the most senior member of the Gu family. He was even on the same level as Li Tianqing's father. This Li Zongjiu was actually so unscrupulous. He did not know what method he used to get the old master of the Gu family to guard their courtyard. In fact, Li Tianqing himself also admired the Gu family style. They did not fight for fame or fortune. In this city, they belonged to the conservative faction. They developed steadily and did not ask for anything. They just lived a simple and natural life like this. At the same time, the old master was also a person with outstanding military achievements on the battlefield. How could such a soldier of the dynasty be a guard for you? It's fine. My life was saved by Mr. Li Jr. It's only right that I do something in return, Gu Xuanwu said with a smile. When he turned around, his expression became extremely solemn. Everyone, listen up. If the Li family is in any danger, you have to be the first to stand in front of them. Do you hear me? Although Gu Xuanwu wasn't young anymore, his roar was like the roar of a ferocious tiger, causing everyone's hearts to tremble violently. The Gu clan's guards were also filled with fighting spirit. To be honest, before they came here, these guards were constantly fighting for the chance to become one of the 20. This was because if they came to the Li family to do a mission, they could be personally trained by the old man. Who wouldn't be willing to do that? They immediately rushed forward. It wasn't easy for these people to stand out. Now, all of them were waiting to show off their skills. Come. Old master, please come in. Men, prepare some tea. Li Tianqing greeted them warmly. He had just told Li Zongjio yesterday that he needed 2 powerhouses at the level of a general. Today, old Master Gu came to visit him directly. If this wasn't a united front, then what was? It was simply timely. Have some tea. I don't think you need to drink anything today. Li Tianqing was just about to greet them when a cold voice came from afar. Who in Luoxia City dared to speak to Li Tianqing in such a tone? However, when Li Tianqing saw who it was, his eyes darkened. Who would have thought that they would come so early? Walking over from the street was a group of 3 people. The one walking at the front was a white-haired old man. He held a tiger head walking stick in his hand. His footsteps were secretive, but his mind was vigorous. If one were to look at him from afar, one would feel as though they had seen through the ages. Tiger Staff Fist King, Jin Yohu. When Li Tianqing saw the walking stick, he immediately recognized the identity of the person in front of him. As early as 10 years ago, Jin Yohu's reputation had already spread. Unexpectedly, Jin Yohu retired from the underworld 10 years later because he had joined the Northern Medicine Alliance. With this group of alchemists behind him, Jin Yohu's strength would only increase. Just this person's aura alone was enough to suppress the aura of dozens of people from the Li family. Gu Xuanwu's eyes gradually narrowed. Little Li's appearance really didn't give him a chance to rest. It wasn't easy to save him, but in the blink of an eye, he found himself such a powerful opponent. He really didn't want to let him live a happy life. As for the other person, he looked like a scholar. He gave off a feeling that this person was more reasonable. Of course, there was also a trace of herbal scent on his body. If there was someone in the same profession as him, they would definitely know that this person was an alchemist. Moreover, his level was quite high. This was the last person to walk. It was Chang Feng, who had escaped that day. Wang Lu's disciple. Not bad, he knew to go back and ask for help. In Chang Feng's heart, he already hated Li Zongjio to the core. The previous person who hated Li Zongjio, Sun Bin, had already become a corpse. However, Chang Feng knew that he was different from Sun Bin. Sun Bin's background was just SOSO, but Chang Feng's background was not ordinary. Behind them, this was the huge Northern Medicine Alliance. No one dared to provoke the people from the Northern Medicine Alliance. If something happened, the consequences would be very serious. Everyone knew this. This time, Chang Feng had returned to Luoxia City under the lead of Jin Yohu and the powerful alchemist in front of him to seek revenge. No matter how arrogant these people were, they wouldn't dare to go against the Northern Medicine Alliance. At least you have some eyesight to recognize me. Jin Yohu and the other 2 walked in front of Li Tianqing, the tiger head walking stick in their hands stabbed into the ground. Let senior brother Wang go, hand over Li Zongjio and the person who attacked you that day. Let's forget about this. The scholarly middle-aged man took a step forward and said indifferently. He said that he wanted 10 lives. If they handed them over, it meant that he wanted to take their lives. Li Tianqing's gaze turned into a thin line. In fact, there was still a general realm expert in the residence. However, Lin Song was seriously injured and was recuperating at Elder Juyan's place. He wasn't of much use. The only person he could rely on was Gu Xuanwu. He didn't know if Gu Xuanwu would escape under such circumstances. Even if you're from the Northern Medicine Alliance, aren't you a little too arrogant? Can the Northern Medicine Alliance do things without reason? Gu Xuanwu stood out and said, Li Tianqing's cultivation wasn't high enough. Facing the pressure of two experts, he naturally lacked confidence. It was already very good that he was able to hold on for so long. You must be Gu Xuanwu from the Gu clan. You retired from the Xuanwu army and have a third-class merit. Isn't it better to enter the coffin with this little merit? Why come out to seek death? Jin Yohu looked at Gu Xuanwu and said, What did you say? Shameless boasting. Gu Man immediately pointed at Jin Yohu and roared. How dare he be disrespectful to the Gu clan's old master? Jin Yohu raised his head and glanced at Gu Man. His eyes were as sharp as arrows, instantly piercing Gu Man's eyes. At the same time, a surge of energy secretly erupted from his body. Bang! From an outsider's point of view, Gu Man was sent flying by Jin Yohu's gaze. Chapter 59. Don't move! Gu Xuanwu bellowed as he looked at the impatient guards behind him. These young men were full of vigor and were about to rush up when they saw the situation. They didn't understand the situation at all. With so many experts here, it was natural for Gu Xuanwu to be nervous. I am the Deputy Alliance Leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance, Shang Quan, a Grade 3 alchemist. It's not that we are unreasonable, but you are not qualified to reason with us. Do you understand? Shang Quan said indifferently, then flicked her sleeves. If it weren't for the dynasty's law that forbids killing on the streets, do you think you would have survived until now? Hand them over and let me take them away so that I can report back. Chang Feng, come out and identify them. Shang Quan said indifferently. Chang Feng also walked out from the back. He pointed directly at Li Tianqing. This man is involved. Li Tianqing suddenly felt a cold and domineering aura locking onto him. Immediately, the Yuan chant within Li Tianqing's body involuntarily began to circulate. He had to block this aura, or else he would be crushed by it. Jin Yohu pounced on Li Tianqing. Although he looked old, his attack was as sharp as a blade. This is Luoxia City. Aren't you looking down on me a little too much? Gu Xuanwu bellowed. Channeling his elemental energy, he charged towards Jin Yohu. Boom! Boom! When the two collided, they both took a step back. However, that Jin Yohu had yet to unleash his attack. As for Gu Xuanwu, he had already prepared himself and was waiting for the arrival of this attack. Looks like you want to enter the coffin as soon as possible. Jin Yohu raised the scepter in his hand. His nickname was the Tiger Scepter Fist King. He held the scepter in one hand and punched with the other. Although this fist appeared to be weak and powerless, it was actually enough to make one vomit 3 liters of blood. Old Master! Li Tianqing could not help but exclaim. This had nothing to do with the Gu family. If Gu Xuanwu intervened, the Gu family would be dragged into this mess. In this city, no one can escape unscathed. Moreover, I have already promised Mr. Li Tianqing. If you want to hurt the Li family, you will have to bury my old bones first. Gu Xuanwu was an unyielding man. As a retired soldier, there was nothing to be said about keeping his promises. Since he had already promised Li Zongjio, even if it was a mountain of daggers or a sea of flames, he had to give it a try. You overestimate yourself. The Tiger Staff Fist King growled. There was a hint of disdain in his eyes. Since Gu Xuanwu wanted to stop him, he should be prepared to be killed by the Tiger Staff Fist King with a single punch. He would not hesitate to do so. Gu Xuanwu also rolled up his sleeves. After being saved by Li Zongjio yesterday, he felt that something was different in his body. It wasn't until last night that he felt the changes in his body. He actually had the ability to absorb fire elemental energy. This made the old man overjoyed. One should know that with an additional elemental energy attribute in one's body, it meant that one could cultivate another elemental technique. Of course, this was on the premise that one could master it. Being able to cultivate an additional elemental formula was equivalent to having an additional means of concealment for an elemental practitioner. This was also the reason why Gu Xuanwu had come so early in the morning. He was too excited. Not only had Li Zongjio saved his life, but he had also given him a second chance at life. To be able to change the elemental energy attribute of a Yuanwu cultivator and increase the elemental energy attribute of a Yuanwu cultivator was something that even an elixir king would not be able to do. Earth-shattering strike. Gu Xuanwu took the lead. With a stomp of his foot, the earth within a 100-meter radius was integrated with Gu Xuanwu's elemental energy, becoming a force that Gu Xuanwu could control. Then, the ground beneath Jin Yohu's feet split open. A crack appeared as if it was going to swallow Jin Yohu whole. However, Jin Yohu let out a low growl. Earth elemental energy? What a coincidence! Eat my fist, exploding fist. Jin Yohu's fist smashed into the ground. Violent elemental energy immediately engulfed Gu Xuanwu's earth elemental energy and exploded. Boom! Gu Xuanwu was almost sent flying. However, when the Yuan power exploded, he had already prepared an earth shield in front of him. Therefore, this force was not enough. After blocking this attack, Jin Yohu once again charged forward. Facing this earth shield, the tiger head cane in his hand instantly struck out, opening a hole in the earth shield. With a loud bang, it penetrated the earth shield and attacked Gu Xuanwu. Gu Xuanwu waved his fist and instantly collided with the tiger head cane. Boom! Gu Xuanwu's figure rapidly retreated. He did not expect a sharp spike to appear on the tiger head cane. As a result, Gu Xuanwu's punch landed directly on the spike, causing a bloody hole to appear on Gu Xuanwu's fist. Hiss! Even with Gu Xuanwu's strong endurance, he could not help but take in a deep breath of cold air. The injury on his fist was too terrible. The tiger head cane in Jin Yohu's hand easily shattered the earth shield in front of him. Holding the tiger head cane in his hand, he laughed loudly. How is it? My black gold spike tastes pretty good, right? It's specially made to break through people with strong defenses like you. Seeing how despicable Jin Yohu was, the rest of the people spat in disdain. This was simply shameless. He was clearly a Yuan general level expert, yet he still tampered with his weapon. It was truly despicable. However, Jin Yohu did not feel any discomfort. After so many years of experience, Jin Yohu directly told him that doing something was better than dying in the hands of others. Kill this old bastard. Beat this old bastard to death. The Gu family guards were all agitated. To think that he would use such a despicable method. If it was anyone else, they would not let it go so easily. In fact, they even lost control of their emotions and charged forward. However, Jin Yohu was waiting for these people to charge forward. Immediately, Jin Yohu executed his fist technique. These Gu family guards were like cabbages that were cut down by a sickle, casually thrown to the ground. Bang, bang, bang. All of them were sent flying back with serious injuries. The strength of a Yuan general-level powerhouse was no joke. If this was in the wild and not in the city, these people might have been killed directly. After all, they were in the city. In a place with so many people, only Li Zongjio would directly kill people. After all, Li Zongjio was still underage. Li family disciples, listen up. Guard the door to your death. Li Tianqing shouted in a low voice, then rushed out. The Sky Blaze Lion King art in his body was activated. Immediately, he felt his aura become several times stronger. Compared to the Fire Lion art from before, this new elemental art was a little too profound. At this moment, Li Tianqing even had the illusion that he could fight against Jin Yohu. When Li Tianqing rushed out, just as he was about to kill Jin Yohu sneered, his eyes full of disdain. This Li Tianqing was not a threat to him at all. The tiger head scepter in his hand was suddenly thrown out. The scepter was directly thrown out. Boom! That tyrannical aura was like a long whip, throwing Li Tianqing to the ground. Boom! Li Tianqing spat out a mouthful of blood. Swoosh! The tiger head scepter pierced towards Li Tianqing. Family head. Some of the Li family elders wanted to rush forward, but the aura in Jin Yohu's body exploded, and an incomparably explosive elemental energy rushed forward like a tidal wave. In an instant, the Li family elders who wanted to rush forward were sent flying. Boom, boom, boom. At this point, there were not many people left in the Li family who could still stand. Li Tianqing suddenly cried out in pain. He saw Jin Youhu's tiger head scepter pierce into his chest. Get out of my way. Gu Xuanwu circulated his elemental energy. Earthstorm kill. Jin Youhu was also wary of the attack of a general-level expert. He took a step back, and under the howling earth storm, he easily swung his fist to block. Boom. That move was over. When he looked at the Li family head, Li Tianqing, he had already been rescued by Gu Xuanwu. You country barbarians, enough is enough. Next, if anyone dares to resist, I will decapitate all of you in the name of murdering an alchemist of the dynasty. At this moment, Shang Quan walked out, holding a token in her hand. Everyone cried out in surprise when they saw the token. Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. Chapter 60. The Heavenly Elixir Pavilion was an organization of the dynasty. It provided certification services for alchemists. At the same time, it was also a means of control. During normal times, all the alchemists were free to do whatever they wanted. However, when it came to a critical moment, they would know where you registered, who introduced you, who was in charge, and how good you were. Then he would know everything clearly. Only by certifying an alchemist in the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion could it be more accurate and clear to everyone. As long as you wanted to make money and become famous, you had to participate in the certification. Otherwise, no one would know that you were an alchemist. You would not even have the chance to show off your skills. At the same time, the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion also provided protection for the alchemists. After all, alchemists would definitely become an extremely important strategic resource during times of war. Therefore, they had to grasp the opportunity during normal times. If an alchemist was injured, the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion would step in. However, when you used this authority, you were already half employed by the imperial court. Obviously, the background behind the Northern Medicine Alliance was not simple. It was not just a simple alchemist alliance. Usually, the purpose of an ordinary alchemist alliance was to help each other. They would discuss the art of alchemy with each other. When they met a talented alchemist, they would befriend him. Occasionally, they would contribute some insights. This was a very normal thing. In addition, there were also the exchanges and transactions between these alchemists. However, when Shang Quan took out the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion token, the meaning was different. This meant that in the Northern Medicine Alliance, there must be someone from the imperial court supporting them. If that was the case, then even if Jin Youhu killed all of them today, Shang Quan would be able to deal with him as long as she used a few tricks. Li Tianqing, you are called Li Tianqing, right? Do you want to die alone or your whole family? You choose. Shang Quan sneered and said, he couldn't beat Li Tianqing in a fight, and he couldn't reason with him either. Now, the other party had taken out a lethal weapon to force Li Tianqing to submit. Although Gu Xuanwu was furious and wanted to beat Shang Quan up, he did not dare to act rashly in front of the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion token. If he angered the imperial court, things would be different. Li Tianqing looked back at the elders and disciples of the Li family. He had never expected that the Li family, which had just ushered in spring, would fall into winter in the blink of an eye. This situation left Li Tianqing with no choice. If his own death could be exchanged for the lives of so many people in the Li clan, he would naturally be willing. All right, I'll go with you. Li Tianqing took a deep breath and forced himself to stand up. The tiger-headed walking stick on his chest had yet to be torn off, and blood was still dripping from it. However, Li Tianqing still stood strong. Even though he was in excruciating pain, he didn't compromise. Patriarch, you can't, Patriarch. Second Elder Li Changlong said excitedly. The surrounding elders also tried to dissuade him again and again. However, Li Tianqing merely raised his hand to signal for these people to remain calm. After I leave, the clan will be in the hands of the second elder. Li Tianqing said in a deep voice and looked back at Li Changlong. Moreover, He was hinting with his eyes that he must protect Li Zongjio and not let Li Zongjio come out. Although Li Tianqing didn't know where Li Zongjio was, he had to act quickly. The reason why Li Tianqing stood out so quickly was that he wanted to resolve this matter as soon as possible. It would be best if he could make the other party forget Li Zongjio. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. Hurry up and hand over my master. Also, get Li Zongjio out here. I want him to kneel in front of me. Chang Feng took a step forward and shouted sternly. At this moment, he could also see that the situation was under control. It was the most appropriate time to show off. Whether it was earlier or later, it wouldn't be appropriate. If it was later, he might not be able to show off. Now, even if Chang Feng pointed at Li Tianqing's nose and cursed, no one would dare to say anything. After all, the current situation was under their control. Bring Master Wang Lu out, Li Tianqing said in a deep voice. At this time, he didn't want to take Wang Lu as a hostage, because if he did, he would only be on the opposite side. Now that they were here, there was no room for negotiation and no bargaining chips, so this was the only way. Wang Lu was quickly brought out. These days, he had been treated well in the Li family. At least, he had 3 meals to eat, but Wang Lu couldn't stand the humiliation. Li Zongjio dared to be so arrogant and trapped him under the golden cauldron. Now that Li Zongjio's golden origin cauldron had been taken away, he had to capture this arrogant Li Zongjio and give him a good thrashing. Only then would he be able to vent his anger. Master Wang Lu, Deputy Leader, Guardian Jin, that Li Zongjio must hand them over. Also, this is the Li family's 3rd-grade elixir formula. As compensation, Wang Lu roared. This insignificant Li family dared to go against him. Now they know how to feel regret and fear. The Northern Medicine Alliance could easily send a few people here to overthrow this insignificant Li family. However, since Jin Yohu and the others had made a move, he would definitely have to thank them after the deed was done. For his life, this reward wasn't a difficult thing. 3rd-grade elixir formula. Shang Quan's eyes flashed with a hint of pride. Wang Lu had said what he wanted to say the most. However, this kind of thing seemed a little degrading when it came from Shang Quan's mouth. However, everything seemed reasonable when it came from Wang Lu's mouth. Li Tianqing's eyes were filled with anger and blood. These people were clearly bandits. They were using the lives of the entire Li family to rob them of their wealth. If they didn't hand it over, the Li family would be destroyed today. If they handed it over, the dignity of the Li family would be completely trampled under their feet. To hand it over or not? Jin Yohu turned around and looked at Shang Quan. Shang Quan nodded slightly, indicating that Jin Yohu could take action. It was time to force them a little. Only then would they know what it meant to cooperate obediently. Jin Yohu turned around and revealed a sinister smile on his face. In the next moment, Jin Yohu stepped forward. His sudden attack was too sudden for the others to react. Be careful! Gu Xuanwu was the first to notice, but it was too late. Li Tianqing couldn't dodge at all, nor did he plan to. Since he couldn't dodge, he would just stand there and let Jin Yohu attack. Jin Yohu grabbed at Li Tianqing's throat. Just as he was about to succeed, Jin Yohu's face changed. The aura around Li Tianqing suddenly became extremely strong. It was as if every breath he took turned into a sharp flying knife. It was attacking Jin Yohu. Not good. Jin Yohu growled. The Yuan power in his hands swept forward and turned into a defensive barrier. Swoosh, swoosh. The force came. Not only that. Behind this force, a terrifying blood dragon roared out. What? Li Zongjio's figure flew out and slapped out. Jin Yohu couldn't react in time and was sent flying. He flew dozens of meters and landed heavily on the street with a bang. Chapter 61. This was probably the first time Jin Yohu was in such a sorry state since he became famous. No one would have thought that Jin Yohu would be sent flying dozens of meters away and fall to the ground with a single palm strike. Such an outcome was simply too pitiful. Anyone who saw it could not help but twitch the corner of their mouth. Among them, the one who felt it the most was Gu Xuanwu. As a Yuan general, Gu Xuanwu had a deep understanding of Jin Yohu's strength after exchanging blows with him. Just his iron bones alone were not something that could be broken by ordinary people. Coupled with the tiger head walking stick made of black gold, it was even more powerful. Ordinary people would not be able to hurt Jin Yohu at all. Li Zongjiu's figure landed right in front of Chang Feng and Wang Lu. Get lost! Li Zongjiu grabbed Wang Lu's throat. Wang Lu did not expect that Li Zongjiu would appear in front of him in the blink of an eye after escaping from the clutches of the Li family. Before he could even take a few breaths of fresh air, Li Zongjiu threw Wang Lu back. As for Chang Feng, after seeing Li Zongjiu, he subconsciously wanted to turn around and run. Li Zongjiu's presence had left a shadow in his heart. Moreover, Li Zongjiu had just sent the strongest Jin Yohu flying with a single strike. With such strength, it was needless to say. Why was this guy still so abnormal? Could it be that no one in this world could beat Li Zongjiu? Trying to run? Li Zongjiu stepped forward and broke Chang Feng's kneecap with a single kick. Chang Feng's back faced Li Zongjiu as he knelt down. My leg! Chang Feng exclaimed and crawled towards Shang Quan with all his might, hoping that Shang Quan would save his life. However, Li Zongjiu stepped forward again and crushed Chang Feng's foot. Whoosh! Li Zongjiu stretched out his hand and sucked over a spear from the guard's hand. Grabbing it in his hand, he directly stabbed it into Chang Feng's back. It pierced through the chest and nailed to the ground. Bang! Chang Feng's eyes widened as he looked at the bloody spear in his chest. How did it feel to be pierced through by a spear? Now he finally knew. Moreover, Li Zongjiu's stab was very skillful. It just happened to avoid the organs in Chang Feng's body, but it also restricted Chang Feng from moving. He was barely hanging on to his last breath, but every time he breathed, there would be a heart-wrenching pain. Save me, save me. Chang Feng had never imagined that he, a dignified alchemy genius of his generation, would actually be tortured to death in such a humiliating manner. This was even more painful than having his head chopped off with a single slash. How dare you cause trouble in my Li family? You don't have to go back today. Li Zongjiu said indifferently as he glanced at Shang Quan. Then he came in front of Li Tianqing and tapped a few acupoints on Li Tianqing's body. Then he pulled out the tiger head walking stick. The blood was stopped by the acupoints and did not fly out. Eat this pill. Li Zongjiu gave him a pill to replenish his blood and qi. At the very least, it could help him recover a little. After Li Tianqing took it and ate it, he immediately refined it on the spot, circulating his energy to heal his wounds. Looking at Gu Xuanwu, he nodded his head to express his gratitude. He did not expect this old man to be so loyal. It seemed that he was right. In a situation where he knew that he would lose, he was actually willing to help. You have to be careful. This person is the Tiger Staff Fist King. He's extremely skilled in fist techniques. Gu Xuanwu could not help but remind him. Gu Xuanwu did not see clearly how Li Zongjiu had unleashed that palm strike. However, Gu Xuanwu knew that if that palm had landed on him, he would not have ended up well either. Jin Yohu had already climbed up from the ground. He shook his head. At this moment, there was still a bloody palm print on his forehead. That palm strike from Li Zongjiu had almost caused Jin Yohu's head to be filled with blood. This move was indeed powerful. No one had expected it. But fortunately, Jin Yohu's elemental energy was thick. The elemental energy cultivation of a third-grade origin general caused Jin Yohu's elemental energy to become a natural defense. Although it was only a third grade, it was 1 grade higher than Gu Xuanwu's second-grade origin general. But Jin Yohu's combat strength was 1 grade higher than Gu Xuanwu's. They were not on the same level at all. The cultivation of a origin general needed to be accumulated bit by bit. Jin Yohu looked to be about the same age as Gu Xuanwu. If Gu Xuanwu had not been affected by the fire poison, he would have entered this realm long ago. But now, he was still a second-grade origin general. Good boy, you have successfully angered me. Jin Yohu's old eyes seemed to reveal a fierceness that had not been shown for a long time. When such a beast-like character was released, the surrounding aura also became terrifying. You are Li Zongjiu? Shang Quan looked at Li Zongjiu with great curiosity. She had heard that Li Zongjiu was arrogant and domineering, evil and cool. He did not give face to anyone, and even dared to kill people on the streets. He gave people the impression that he was a rash person. But when Shang Quan saw that Li Zongjio had actually sent Jin Yohu flying so far away, she could not help but feel shocked. To be able to make Jin Yohu suffer was already proof of his strength. This Li Zongjio was indeed not simple. But it was a pity that he was so arrogant even though he was obviously very talented. If you can cultivate wholeheartedly for more than 10 years, you will definitely become someone in the future. Your mistake is that you are in the limelight too early. Shang Quan said indifferently. Hee, when I press your head into the latrine pit, you will know that it is not early. Li Zongjio did not even bother to look at the person in front of him. In Li Zongjio's eyes, Shang Quan was already a dead man. There was nothing to say. Protector Jin, take off this person's head. I want to cut off his tongue with my own hands. Shang Quan shouted sternly. Li Zongjio was young and frivolous. He did not know that he was the deputy chief of the Northern Medicine Alliance and dared to speak nonsense. Naturally, he had to teach this Li Zongjio a lesson. Otherwise, he would really think that no one in the world could deal with him. Jin Yohu had long wanted to make a move. When he heard Shang Quan's order, he leapt up excitedly like a ferocious tiger leaping. His aged body displayed the agility and ferocity of a young man. Tiger Tide. A fist came down from the sky. This fist seemed to have locked onto Li Zongjio's entire body. Li Zongjio had nowhere to run, and Li Zongjio did not move at all. A beam of golden light descended, directly blasting Li Zongjio's figure into pieces. Boom! A 5-meter-deep pit appeared on the ground. If Li Zongjio was in it, he would have been a pile of meat paste by now. Your fists are pretty good for planting trees. Chapter 62. Li Zongjio's mockery lingered in his ears. Jin Yohu's face instantly darkened. He, Jin Yohu, had roamed the pugilistic world for so many years. When had he ever been toyed with? This time, it was a teenager. Since when did a teenager dare to stand on his head and behave so atrociously? If he did not capture Li Zongjio and let Li Zongjio know the power of his iron fists, how would he, Jin Yohu, survive in the pugilistic world in the future? Die. Jin Yohu seemed to have gone mad. That terrifying Yuan power was instantly unleashed. It was as if a kind of Yuan power had exploded. It formed a converging force in the surroundings and directly landed on Li Zongjio's body. Let's see where you can run to. Jin Yohu roared and once again charged towards Li Zongjio with a punch. A Yuan skill was instantly unleashed. Evil Tiger Fist. This move was not a traditional Yuan skill. Instead, it was a fist technique that Jin Yohu had created himself based on his many years of mastery in fist techniques. Usually, no one could survive this punch. Fist technique. 8 Desolation Fist. Li Zongjio also unleashed a fist technique Yuan skill. In his previous life, Li Zongjio did not earn the title of Evil Lord for nothing. He studied fist techniques, palm techniques, and sword techniques. No matter what kind of Yuan skill it was, he only needed to do a little research to get the results. It was this kind of talent that helped Li Zongjio forge his powerful strength. This 8 Desolation Fist was also a move that Li Zongjio was extremely proficient in. If the fist landed on a person's body, that person's body would instantly explode like the 4 Seas and 8 Desolations. This kind of power was not something that an ordinary person could imagine. Only Li Zongjio would be able to use such a cruel ultimate move. The aura of Li Zongjio's move was quite strong. It seemed to have formed an invisible aura around him. Within the aura, there was a feeling of burning everything. It was like a scene where the King of Destruction walked by. Everywhere was silent. What an imposing manner! Their fists collided. Li Zongjio's legs trembled. The ground behind him exploded like a popped balloon. Puff puff. The flying gravel directly penetrated the wall 10 meters away, showing the strength of this attack. Many of the Li family's disciples watched the battle in front of them anxiously. When did their young master become so powerful? One had to know that before this, although the young master of the Li family could not be considered a piece of trash, he definitely gave off the feeling of mediocrity. But suddenly, this young master had transformed into a war god and appeared in front of them, blocking a powerful enemy and saving Zhu Yan's family. It was like a dream. Be careful. Li Yun also saw this scene in the crowd. Li Zongjio was bitterly blocking the enemy. This scene made Li Yun's heart ache. This nephew of hers. He was so young. Although there was not much difference in age, Li Zongjio's actions were much better than ordinary people. The ground under Li Zongjio's feet shattered. But it was not easy for him either. The power of Li Zongjio's punch did not shatter his opponent's body into pieces, but it did shatter Jin Yohu's clothes into pieces. Crash! His clothes were torn into pieces. Jin Yohu's body was suddenly exposed to everyone's eyes. This made Jin Yohu's old face not know where to put it. This was a battle of humiliation. Jin Yohu's face suddenly felt hot. What kind of move did Li Zongjio use? Oh, you have some substance. Li Zongjio took a glance and teased. A 3,000-year-old monster, what had he not seen before? Although Li Zongjio's mentality was young, he was already used to such things. There was nothing to be surprised about. I think you're really tired of living. Jin Yohu put on a new robe without batting an eyelid. Otherwise, how was he going to fight naked? Just that swaying little thing was enough to make everyone laugh. Li Zongjio's lips curled into a smile. But this smile gradually turned from a mocking smile to an extremely serious and vicious one. Evil soul eye. The gaze in his eyes changed instantly. When Jin Yohu saw Li Zongjio's gaze, he was stunned. At this moment, he had not yet calmed down. When he suddenly saw Li Zongjio's eyes, he felt as though he had fallen into a whirlpool and could not extricate himself. At this moment, Jin Yohu's mind went blank. Not good. Jin Yohu's subconscious was telling him that there was something wrong with this gaze. However, it was too late now. When he opened his eyes again, he saw that Li Zongjio was already 1 meter away from him. What? Jin Yohu's eyes widened. When he saw Li Zongjio reach out his hand, he subconsciously wanted to block it. But it was all too late. Li Zongjio's 2 fingers were like a pair of metal chopsticks as they directly pierced into Jin Yohu's eyes. Then, with a cry, he gouged out both of Jin Yohu's eyeballs. The pain of having his eyeballs gouged out was still connected to some blood-red nerves. Anyone who was alive would not be able to endure it. Ah! Jin Yohu immediately roared in pain. Try it yourself. Li Zongjio threw the 2 bloody eyeballs into Jin Yohu's mouth. Gulp. He actually let Jin Yohu eat his own eyeballs. Jin Yohu could not see anything and did not know what he had eaten. Die, die. Jin Yohu continued to release his elemental energy. His fists were randomly thrown out and landed on the ground continuously. However, Li Zongjio's figure flashed and easily dodged. At this moment, Jin Yohu had already lost his footing. He did not even know what he was doing. Swoosh! Li Zongjio pulled out another long spear. Swoosh! Swoosh! It directly pierced into Jin Yohu's throat and came out from between his legs. It was nailed to the ground. Heh! Jin Yohu raised his head and opened his mouth. He wanted to open his eyes to look at the sky, but he realized that he had no eyes. At this moment, he gradually died. A strong warrior of a generation. It only took a few breaths of time. A strong warrior with a fierce reputation in the Jianghu. The Tiger Staff Fist King. Just like that, he was killed by Li Zongjio. The appearance of such a situation was something that even Shang Quan had not expected. He did not expect. In such a rural place, there was actually someone who could kill a 3rd-grade prime general. Could it be that Jin Yohu's body was weak because of his old age? However, although Shang Quan was shocked, he did not show any emotion on his face. Very well, you killed the protector of the Northern Medicine Alliance, Li Tianqing. Your Li family will be annihilated. Li Zongjio looked at Shang Quan indifferently. Annihilation? Huh, you think you can leave alive with your level of a 2nd-grade mental strength master? Hearing Li Zongjio's words, Shang Quan, who had been calm all this time, suddenly changed his expression. Chapter 63. If Li Zongjio had been able to kill Jin Yohu, Shang Quan would not have been so surprised. After all, a boorish man like Jin Yohu was only suitable to be ordered around as a high-level fighter. However, Li Zongjio had been able to tell that he was a level 2 mental strength master. Shang Quan could not help but be surprised. Li Zongjio had been born in such a small place, yet he had the ability to come into contact with the existence of a mental strength master. It was indeed shocking. However, mental strength masters were a rather secretive existence. Only those who had a certain social status and a certain level of strength would know of their existence. It was even difficult to tell what level a mental strength master was at before he displayed his mental strength. Shang Quan had not even made a move yet, but Li Zongjio had been able to tell his level of strength with just a few words. This indeed caused Shang Quan to be shocked. This was not as simple as guessing a riddle. Li Zongjio must have some tricks up his sleeve. Since you know about the existence of mental strength masters, it seems that there is someone behind your Li family. In that case, you are deliberately targeting our Northern Medicine Alliance. Shang Quan snorted coldly. He quickly analyzed in his mind who Li Zongjio and the others were. Deliberately? A small Northern Medicine Alliance like yours is not worth my time. Li Zongjio said disdainfully. If this had happened in his previous life, Li Zongjio would have thought that such an alliance was just a group of useless people who wanted to prove their strength and status. They were just a group of shameless people who wanted to prove their strength and status. They were just a group of clowns. There was no need for Li Zongjio to deliberately target them. It's just that my Li family wants to grow, so I need to borrow your strength to step on it. Li Zongjio said. His tone was filled with indifference and domineering confidence. No one knew who gave Li Zongjio such confidence. Only Li Zongjio could say something like trampling the Apothecary Alliance beneath his feet. At this moment, all the disciples of the Li family and the 20 guards from the Gu family were shocked by Li Zongjio's heroic spirit. If Li Zongjio really had the strength, then he was really awesome. If not, then he was just showing off. But no matter what, to be able to experience such a scene once in his life, he could die with no regrets. When Li Zongjio said these words, he was full of confidence. It was as if he had rehearsed it countless times. This made some of the young ladies unable to help but feel amorous. Young master is so handsome, so majestic, so domineering, so our young master is so charming. Why didn't I notice it before? Listening to these girls, Li Yun couldn't help but frown. No matter what, they were still from the same family. Although some of their bloodlines were 3 generations away, these people definitely wouldn't have a chance. She had to quickly rein in these ignorant girls. Otherwise, Li Zongjio's youthful frivolity might cause trouble. If that happened, it would be a joke. You sure talk big. Shang Quan stared at the strange Li Zongjio. She didn't know why, but she had a bad premonition. It seemed like she had to leave this place quickly. However, she didn't believe that the small Li family would be able to cause any trouble with her strength as a level 2 mental strength master. Since that's the case, then let me see your strength. Shang Quan shouted in a low voice. Then her robes fluttered. Rumble. The aura on her body instantly turned berserk. Although they did not see any energy surging out, they could feel that a dark and cold wind involuntarily blew in the surroundings. There seemed to be something above their heads that was continuously descending. The powerful pressure caused some of the weaker disciples to faintly feel as though they could not endure it any longer. Among them, the one who suffered the most intense impact was Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio stood in his original position. The other party's mental strength seemed to have transformed into a huge wave that swept towards Li Zongjio. This was the most common tactic used by mental strength masters. Mental oppression. In reality, these things didn't exist. However, it wasn't so easy to trick one's own mind. Even if one knew that it was fake, it would be very difficult to convince oneself not to believe it when the real thing appeared in front of you. However, all of this didn't exist in front of Li Zongjio. The yuan bead within his body trembled, and the white dragon tattoo immediately appeared in his eyes. In an instant, Li Zongjio's eyes became clear. The White Dragon Sovereign was extremely proficient in mental strength when he was alive. So much so that he could reverse the flow of time with a single glance, creating an effect as if time was flowing backwards or even stopped. Therefore, when the White Dragon tattoo appeared in front of Li Zongjio's eyes, it directly gave Li Zongjio a powerful boost. The mental oppression before him was almost instantly broken by Li Zongjio. Quickly stepping forward, Li Zongjio stretched out his hand and directly grabbed Shang Quan's throat. What? Shang Quan's eyes widened. With his strength as a second-rank mental strength master, he was actually unable to affect Li Zongjio in the slightest. He even felt a terrifying threat from Li Zongjio's body. This power was hidden within Li Zongjio's body. Shang Quan still had no way to touch this forbidden power in the depths of Li Zongjio's body. Otherwise, once the power within Li Zongjio's body counterattacked, he would only end up being crushed. However, the current situation wasn't any better. Li Zongjio's figure instantly closed in. He stretched out his hand. This hand was almost impossible to dodge. Shang Quan prepared to take out some life-saving items from his bosom to block Li Zongjio's footsteps. However, he was still not as fast as Li Zongjio's speed. How could an old monster like Li Zongjio give his enemy a chance to catch his breath? Grabbing the throat of the person in front of him, Li Zongjio grabbed him and smashed him to the ground. Bang! Pooh! Shang Quan's throat tasted sweet and he spat out a mouthful of blood. After spitting out this mouthful of blood, Shang Quan, who had just reacted and was about to scream, but Li Zongjio directly grabbed a stone and stuffed it into his mouth. Woo woo woo. Shang Quan's arms and legs were wriggling non-stop. Li Zongjio stood up and generously gave Shang Quan a kick, directly shattering her knee. Shang Quan's knee was directly broken. Based on his own experience, this knee would definitely not be able to recover. In the future, he could only walk with one leg. Chapter 64. After realizing how vicious Li Zongjio was, Shang Quan didn't dare to act recklessly anymore. If this continued, she would probably suffer a lot. No matter how painful it was, he could only endure it. To be honest, this spirit master was like a weak child in front of Li Zongjio. There was no threat at all. After Shang Quan was taken down, the crowd, who seemed to be unable to catch their breath, finally heaved a sigh of relief. The huge boulder on their chests had also been removed. Among everyone, only Gu Xuanwu truly understood how terrifying Li Zongjio was. Spirit masters. On the battlefield, they were like life harvesters. Gu Xuanwu's team had once been in pursuit of a spirit master who had lost control and rebelled. However, in the dense fog forest, not only did the Psyche Master control a few extremely vicious and powerful metabeasts, but he also transformed into an elusive killer before you could even react. Before you could react, he would immediately kill you. In fact, a single mental attack would be enough to send your entire team into a state of chaos. Therefore, this spirit master was extremely difficult to deal with. If a metabeast wasn't proficient in mental defense, he or she would have been killed in an instant. Gu Xuanwu had been able to survive that nightmarish pursuit. This made Gu Xuanwu feel extremely fortunate. When Shang Quan had attacked just now, he had felt as though he had returned to the past. That scene was still vivid in his mind. However, in the blink of an eye, he had been taken down by Li Zongjio. This was indeed somewhat unexpected. Li Zongjio hadn't killed Shang Quan, but this pain was enough to make Shang Quan suffer. Bring Wang Lu over as well. Wang Lu and Shang Quan were both forced to kneel in front of him. Wang Lu didn't have the time to humiliate the Li family's people before Li Zongjio arrived. Wang Lu didn't know why, but there was a trace of luck in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't say anything just now. Otherwise, he wouldn't be standing here in one piece. Only one of you can be used by me to refine pills for the Li family. Li Zongjio looked at the two of them and said indifferently, "Clang." After saying that, Li Zongjio threw a dagger in front of the two of them. Shang Quan had lost a leg, but Wang Lu was very healthy. If they really fought, Shang Quan would definitely die. However, with Shang Quan's status, who would dare to act recklessly? Even if Wang Lu had the guts, he wouldn't dare to make a move. If you don't kill him, he will definitely kill you. Li Zongjio looked at Wang Lu as he said this. Li Zongjio's words were like a curse that kept pouring into Wang Lu's mind. Wang Lu was well aware that Shang Quan's ability in alchemy was above his. Li Zongjio's viciousness had long been recognized. Furthermore, Wang Lu was familiar with Li Zongjio's situation. Killing one more person wouldn't be a big deal. Right now, Chang Feng and Jin Yohu were skewered on the ground like barbecued pork. This was almost a demonstration of killing, and it deeply shocked Wang Lu. This also made Wang Lu, who was already so old, feel quite surprised. This was really a case of unruly people coming from barren hills and turbulent rivers. Just these people in front of him had already taught Wang Lu a lesson. This was simply asking for his life. This was too vicious. Looking at the blood flowing all over the ground, Shang Quan, who was moaning by the side, knew. Shang Quan's throat was choked by the stone. She couldn't speak. However, looking at Wang Lu's wavering eyes, she started to feel nervous. What was this guy trying to do? He couldn't have been deceived by Li Zongjio, right? This was just a small trick to deliberately let Wang Lu kill him. This way, Wang Lu would have no way out. And it would also solve the big problem of Shang Quan. In the future, Wang Lu would have to stand on the same side as the Li family. If he didn't do anything, Wang Lu's outcome would be the same. No matter what choice he made, he would still die in the end. The only way was to kill Shang Quan and pray that Li Zongjio's Li family could destroy the Northern Medicine Alliance. I'm sorry, Deputy Alliance Leader. Wang Lu was also a ruthless person. He picked up the dagger on the ground and stabbed Shang Quan to death. Shang Quan didn't expect this at all. Her eyes widened as she stared at Wang Lu, her hands grabbing Wang Lu's sleeves. This Wang Lu actually dared to kill her. Seeing this scene, Li Zongjio couldn't help but sneer. Then, he raised his head and looked at the street ahead. Several figures seemed to be avoiding Li Zongjio's target. They also retreated and disappeared. Let's go. Li Zongjio's methods are really brilliant. He let Wang Lu kill Shang Quan. This way, the biggest problem won't be the Li family. When the Li family becomes stronger in the future, they will have an excuse to shirk responsibility. Let's go back and report to Master Inglai and the city lord. A few figures quickly disappeared from the street. The Li family's crisis was thus resolved. No one had thought that it would be so easy to deal with it. But if Li Zongjio hadn't returned in time, the Li family probably wouldn't have survived today. Clean this place up, Li Zongjio said. Then he led Li Tianqing, Gu Xuanwu and the rest into the Li family. First, he checked the two's injuries. Fortunately, although the two's injuries were serious, they weren't fatal. These external injuries were common for Yuan practitioners. I came back late. Last night, I met a group of people. Have you heard of the Black Zen sect? Li Zongjio asked as he prepared medicine for the two's injuries. Li Tianqing and Gu Xuanwu were sitting in chairs. When they heard Li Zongjio's words, they looked at each other. The Black Zen sect? The Black Zen sect was suppressed and eliminated by the imperial court 2 years ago. Before that, the Black Zen sect was a small evil sect. Because of the Black Zen sect's evil practices, it was eliminated by the imperial court. Could it be that the Black Zen sect hasn't been eliminated yet? So it was an evil sect. Li Zongjio nodded thoughtfully. Yes, the Black Zen sect is supporting Li Changjiang. Li Zongjio said. How could Li Tianqing not understand the seriousness of the matter? Not only did the evil sect want to make a comeback, but it also seemed that they wanted to suck the Li family's blood to increase their strength. Chapter 65. As the head of the Li family, how could Li Tianqing allow such a thing to happen? That Li Changjiang, I will definitely bring him back. Let's use Wang Lu for the time being. He has nowhere else to go. Let him refine elixirs and hand them over to the Bai family to sell. Don't worry about the Northern Medicine Alliance. I will take care of it, Li Zongjio said slowly. Gu Xuanwu and Li Tianqing looked at Li Zongjio. What kind of power did this young man in front of them have? The Northern Medicine Alliance was definitely a colossus to any of the forces in Luoxia City. However, Li Zongjio said that it was something that could be easily taken care of. Tomorrow, I will make a trip to the Shuai Yao spiritual city. Father, there should be no problem with 2 Yuan generals guarding it, right? The other Yuan generals was naturally Lin Song. After Elder Li Jioyan's care, Lin Song's body had almost recovered. After all, he was a Yuan general. His body's recovery ability was quite good. After today's battle, the Gu family and the Li family had a deep understanding of the situation. They must become stronger. Otherwise, any one person from the other side would be enough to defeat them. Only 2 people from the other side came and defeated them directly. Today's battle had spread throughout the entire Luoxia city. The Bai family already knew that the Gu family and the Li family were in an alliance. Li Zhongjie really had a way to integrate the 2 forces. First, he destroyed the Sun family and intimidated the other 2 families to prove that he was not joking. Now, he had subdued the Gu family. Even old Master Gu had personally come to the Li residence to become a guard. If the Bai family didn't compromise, then they wouldn't be able to continue living in this world. The 2 families only needed to exert a little force. There would definitely be no place for the Bai family. Today, Li Zhongjie ordered Wang Lu to kill Shang Quan. It won't be long before the Northern Medicine Merchant Alliance finds out about this. Could it be that the City Lord's mansion is not going to make a move? In the Bai family, Bai Wuheng summoned the elders and Bai Luoxue for a meeting. As for the situation between the Li family and the Gu family, it was clear that if the Bai family did not join them, they would have no chance at all. He could be kicked out at any time. Patriarch, the Li family is too arrogant and will definitely be destroyed by the Northern Medicine Alliance in the future. Right now, we only need to temporarily stabilize the Li family. In less than a month, the Li family will definitely be completely destroyed. An elder said. What kind of existence was the Northern Medicine Alliance? Since the Li family had provoked such a colossus, they could only wait to be exterminated. That's right. In my opinion, we should immediately inform the Northern Medicine Alliance to express our friendliness. An elder expressed his agreement. The Li family had made such a big mess and they actually wanted the families in Luoxia City to be buried together with them. This was indeed a little too whimsical. Luoxue, what do you think we should do? In fact, Bai Wuheng was also a little tempted. If the Li family and the Northern Medicine Alliance went against each other, the end result would be very obvious. They should directly contact the Northern Medicine Alliance and then cooperate with the Northern Medicine Alliance to destroy the Li family. This was naturally a win-win situation. Bai Luoxue felt helpless in her heart. The foresight of these old fellows was getting worse and worse. It was no wonder that the clan had been going downhill until now. In the eyes of the Northern Medicine Alliance, the Li family was just an ant. Then the Bai family would be the same. If such a thing happened, especially the Li family, who would be able to calm down the anger? At this time, we still need to see the City Lord's mansion's attitude. If we act rashly, we will only end up not pleasing both sides. The City Lord's mansion's action represents the attitude of the Imperial Court. Bai Luoxue only said this sentence because before this, Bai Luoxue had already understood that the Northern Medicine Alliance seemed to have the backing of the Imperial Court. If they were in the Imperial Court, they would have to consider the issue of which side they were on. It would be better if they had the advantage. But if they were careless and chose the wrong side, they would be very sorry. It was very likely that they would go with the flow and be scattered with the wind. They had to figure out the issue of which side the Northern Medicine Alliance was on. The City Lord's mansion only belonged to the Imperial Court. If the situation was serious, the City Lord's mansion would probably deal with the Li family without the Northern Medicine Alliance's help. But until now, the City Lord's mansion had not made any move. This was enough to explain everything. Bai Luoxue's words seemed to have hit the nail on the head. The other elders also nodded. Luoxue's vision is still unique. The City Lord's mansion's attitude is indeed very important. But that's only on a general level. No matter what, the Northern Medicine Alliance will still come for us. What should we do? If the Northern Medicine Alliance finds out that we're working closely with the Li family, we won't have a good ending. Bai Luoxue arrived in front of Bai Wuheng, looked into his eyes, and said, "Family head, this cooperation with the Li family is an opportunity. The greater the risk, the greater the reward." After Bai Luoxue finished speaking, she bowed slightly. "I still have some matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first." To be honest, the structure of Luoxia City was indeed a little small for Bai Luoxue. If she wanted to go out, she had to work together. However, all of this was out of Bai Luoxue's control. Now, she could only try her best to manage the Bai family's business. In the city lord's mansion, Yi Chao also received the news that Li Zongjio had killed Shang Quan. This kid is really ruthless. He is even more ruthless than his grandfather. Well done. Since these people killed people on the street, Ying Lai, did the blood splatter all over the ground? Yi Chao asked. This was what Ying Lai had reported to him. Yes, city lord. Ying Lai frowned. They were talking about killing people. Why did they have to talk about blood? Since they killed people on the street, the blood naturally flowed on the street. Then issue a punishment order to the Li family. Just say that the Li family polluted the street environment. Fine them 500 gold yuan. Yi Chao said. Hearing his own city lord's words, Ying Lai's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. City lord, this matter is a little hasty. Such a thing was truly unprecedented in history. Chapter 66. The Li family had killed 3 people on the street. Moreover, he had killed 3 people. If he didn't do something about it, the atmosphere in Luoxia City would change. It was simply unimaginable. It was precisely because of this incident. This was clearly turning a blind eye to the situation. Moreover, the way he closed his eyes was too casual. Oh, when did you learn to question my decisions? Yi Chao glanced at Ying Lai, who was standing beside him. Immediately, Ying Lai felt the sharpness of the blade. Ying Lai immediately lowered his head. At this moment, he understood that he had crossed Yi Chao's bottom line. Although he was the best strategist in the city lord mansion, Yi Chao could easily remove him from his position with just a word. There was no need to trouble him. I don't dare. I'll go right away. Ying Lai immediately retreated. When he left, he was drenched in cold sweat. However, when he turned around, his eyes gradually sharpened. One day, the position of the city lord of Luoxia City will be mine. When that time comes, all of you will be trampled under my feet. Ying Lai thought to himself. Soon, according to the city lord's order, he drafted a punishment order. A mere 500 gold coins might be an astronomical figure for an ordinary person. However, for the Li family, it was just an eyelid blow. It was not even a heartache. How could such a thing happen? It was hard to believe. Even Li Tianqing widened his eyes when he received the punishment order. After pondering for a long time with Gu Xuanwu, he finally understood the city lord mansion's intention. They were actually encouraging them to become enemies with the Northern Medicine Alliance. Such distant forces were actually able to get involved. But no matter what, the city lord's mansion turning a blind eye was a good thing for them. If the city lord mansion really wanted to make things difficult for them, it would be very difficult to solve. Li Zongjio, who was cultivating, also heard about the punishment order from the city lord mansion. He couldn't help but smile. It seems that this old fellow city lord does indeed have some friendship with grandfather. However, I do not know how deep this friendship is. In Lin Fan's previous life, when the Li family was in trouble, the city lord's office also dared to intervene, but the effect wasn't very good. At that time, Li Zongjio didn't care so much and treated this matter as a thing of the past. The reason why Li Zongjio didn't attack the city lord's mansion in this life was because he wanted to see what the city lord's mansion's attitude was. Looking at it now, it wasn't too bad. At the very least, she didn't stab him in the back at this moment. Speaking of which, this is City Lord Yi Chao's granddaughter. In my previous life, I had some connections with her. Li Zongjio remembered. When he was growing up, he accidentally saved Yi Chao's granddaughter in the elemental beast forest. Her name should be Yi Tianxue. The life of the previous life might not be useful in this life. After all, the things that he had experienced were different. However, it was important to know that most things would still develop according to his previous life. This was because their thinking hadn't changed. Since City Lord Yi Chao chose to stand on the side of the Li family for the time being, Li Zongjio didn't mind helping Yi Chao once in the future. Li Zongjio was a person who could clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. Therefore, in this life, he would take revenge for revenge and repay kindness for kindness. However, Li Zongjio didn't receive much kindness. Tomorrow, he would go to the Shuiyao spiritual city to look for one person. This person left a deep impression on Li Zongjio. At the same time, it seemed that the matter of the Li family wasn't that simple. In his previous life, although the most direct enemy had been eliminated, in fact, the mastermind was still not found. Since he didn't find these people in his previous life, this time, Li Zongjio would find all these people and settle the score. The next day, the Bai family also heard about the punishment from the city lord's mansion. Early in the morning, Elder Li Jiuyan of the Li family personally brought the 500 gold coins to pay the fine. Who was Elder Li Jiuyan? He was the alchemy elder of the Li family. He was in charge of alchemy. There was no need for such an elder to pay a fine. Moreover, it was an alchemy elder. As long as one had a brain, they would be able to see that there was something fishy going on. It seems that we can't offend the Li family for the time being. Although the Northern Medicine Alliance is powerful, they are still a foreign force. If they want to touch the local forces of our Luoxia city, they still have to ask the Fog Snow Alchemy sect and the City Lord's mansion. Bai Wuheng thought. The Northern Medicine Alliance had some sects supporting them. Similarly, their Luoxia city also had the Fog Snow Alchemy sect as their backing and the City Lord's mansion, which represented the imperial court. Therefore, the dispute of interests wasn't so simple. If the other party wanted to touch the cake of Luoxia city, of course, they had to see if the Fog Snow Alchemy sect was willing to let them. Who didn't have a force behind them? In fact, the Fog Snow Alchemy sect was also a member of the Medicine Alliance. They benefited from each other. If it really came to that point, then it would be a battle that involved great benefits. Bai Luoxue heaved a sigh of relief in her heart when she heard Bai Wuheng's words. She was really worried that Bai Wuheng would give up on this extremely risky opportunity and ruin the future of the Bai clan in order to curry favor with the Northern Medicine Alliance. If that was the case, there would be no way to salvage the situation. Family head, the Li family's pills have been sent over. A family guard came forward and said, the pills were what Li Zongjio had come to discuss in person. The Bai family was in charge of the sales of the pills. Of course, most of the profits would flow into the pockets of the Li family. Of course, if the cooperation became bigger in the future and the Bai family became more famous, the money would come rolling in. What quality are they? Bai Wuheng said a little impatiently. He didn't have much hope in the first place. Although the Li family's pills were good, they weren't that good. This was because there weren't any families that were good at alchemy in Luoxia city. This was a very rare thing in itself. Family head, this is the list. The guard handed over the list in his hand. When Bai Wuheng saw the first line of words, he had already sat up straight. When he saw half of the list, his butt couldn't sit still on the stool. He stood up and shouted loudly. Quick, where are the pills? Bring them over. Chapter 67. These medicinal pills were all sealed. The surface of the porcelain bottle was sealed with very fine patterns. Once it was opened, it would be impossible to restore it. This method was used to ensure that the medicinal pills would not be replaced by others. This time, a whole box of porcelain bottles was presented to him. In each porcelain bottle, there was a medicinal pill. If the medicinal pills of different attributes were mixed together, there might be some adverse reactions. Even if the medicinal pills of the same attribute were put together, it might not be good. 2 second-grade high-level medicinal pills, 10 second-grade middle-level medicinal pills, and 30 second-grade primary-level medicinal pills. All of them are above the second-grade medicinal pills. This is what I want. Bai Wuheng suddenly became excited. In the past, it was already very good to have a second-grade middle-level medicinal pill appear in the market of Luoxia city. However, the supply could not meet the demand. Sometimes, they even needed to purchase medicinal pills from other cities. Although Fog Snow Pill sect cooperated with the Li family, they only provided some ordinary medicinal pills to the Li family. If there were more high-grade medicinal pills, they would rather keep them for themselves. They would only sell them as a last resort. It would become a relatively urgent and scarce resource. In the past, the medicinal pills column in Luoxia City could be said to be extremely low-end. Only first-grade medicinal pills could be bought. Sometimes, it was just some medicinal liquid. Medicinal pills could be said to be precious. This time, the medicinal pills sent by the Li family were enough to last for a period of time. Bai Wuheng did not know if the medicinal pills sent next time would be the same. He only hoped that it could last forever. Bai Wuheng was happy. At least, he could use this medicinal pill to expand the market. However, Li family's Wang Lu had a bitter look on his face. It was only the first day and he was already being squeezed dry. For Wang Lu, refining these dawn wasn't difficult, but you should at least let me rest. I am an alchemist with dignity, yet you actually treat me like a machine for alchemy. Wang Lu's face was filled with bitterness. Wang Lu did not treat him as a noble alchemist at all. Wang Lu felt that such a situation was inconceivable, but there was no other way, unless he could find a chance to escape. Li Zongjio and the rest of the people from the alchemy hall had also used the improved pill formula by Li Zongjio. With the addition of some other methods of refining pills, the success rate of refining pills had increased. This could be said to be an extremely huge breakthrough. Just this alone made Li Jiuyen and the rest extremely excited. Li Zongjio had already tidied up his luggage. The riding crane that he borrowed from Long Herb Peak was now in the Li family's courtyard. Therefore, Li Zongjio decided to ride the white crane there as well. It could shorten the journey by a lot. As for Lin Song's matter, Li Zongjio didn't intend to help too much. After all, Lin Song was his slave. Li Zongjio didn't have that many obligations. If he couldn't even save his own granddaughter, then there was no need to keep him. Even Li Zongjio gave Lin Song a mission, which was to bring Li Changjiang back. After failing this mission, Lin Song was already too ashamed to face Li Zongjio. This time, he would definitely be well prepared. After all, he was the peak master of Fog Snow Pill sect's Long Herb Peak. He still had the ability to do so. If the Black Zen sect was really powerful, then they wouldn't have to sneakily support Lu Shun. He rode the white crane and soared into the sky. The location of the Shueiyao spiritual city was about 2,000 miles northwest of Luoxia City. With the speed of the white crane, he should be able to reach it in a day. Does this count as riding a white crane to the west? Li Zongjio suddenly thought of this and couldn't help but laugh. Li Zongjio didn't waste the time on the white crane. He had been cultivating the whole time. Along the way, he had to talk about the structure of the Xingyan dynasty. Like the majority of the cities, the majority of the Xingyan dynasty's territory and cities were built in a relatively safe area. Surrounding the entire dynasty were the 4 terrifying great forests. These 4 great forests were also ruled by the terrifying king of the forest. Within the dynasty, there were of course some vast forests that had yet to be developed. However, compared to the forests outside the dynasty, they were very small. Therefore, when some Yuan masters wanted to hunt for resources and treasures, most of them would gather at the edges of the 4 great forests. Coincidentally, the Shueiyao spiritual city was located at the edge of one of the forests. North of the Shueiyao spiritual city, less than 100 miles away, was the entrance to the 10,000 Blood Forest. In the 10,000 Blood Forest, whether it was between a human Yuan master and a meta beast, or between meta beasts, or between Yuan masters, that was where an extremely fierce battle would erupt. Countless gold diggers would wander around the vicinity of the Shueiyao spiritual city. This place was filled with people from all walks of life. If one wasn't careful, one could fall into an irrecoverable situation. When Li Zongjio's figure flitted across a black mountain, Li Zongjio was shocked. Several figures immediately spurred their horses and chased after him. "Shoot that brat down for me." A person ran as if he was flying. With a leap, he landed on a treetop. The bow in his hand was aimed at Li Zongjio. "I am the 100-mile archer god. Within 100 miles, killing people is as easy as taking something out of my pocket. Come down for me." The person who called himself the 100-mile archer god had a special longbow in his hand that could withstand a force of 400 pounds. However, even so, the longbow in his hand still couldn't display his full strength. The tyrannical arrow rapidly swept out. In an instant, It seemed to tear a crack in the sky. After shooting the arrow, the 100-mile archer god turned around arrogantly, no longer looking at the scene in front of him. Since the arrow had been shot, it was up to fate whether it could hit its target or not. Whether it could hit its target or not, it was already shot anyway. "Old Black, well done." At this moment, a strong man rushed out from the side and patted the 100-mile archer god. "Please treat me as the archer god." Old Black was instantly angry. How could this person be so rude? "The thing you shot." The man suddenly pointed to the front. Old Black frowned. He had personally taken action. Could something unexpected happen? However, when Old Black turned around, he suddenly saw a huge white crane sweeping towards him. Whoosh! A terrifying gust of wind blew, causing Old Black to subconsciously fly to the side. However, it was already too late. The white crane's claws directly grabbed Old Black's shoulder. "Damn it, put me down." Boom! Li Zongjio controlled the white crane and directly rushed into the sky with Old Black. "Oh, then let go of him," Li Zongjio said indifferently. The white crane seemed to understand and immediately released its claws. Old Black immediately fell from the height of several hundred meters. Damn it! Damn it! However, before Old Black hit the ground, he was caught by a fiery red figure. Both wings spread out and they could clearly feel a wave of heat coming towards them. On the mountaintop, a few figures quickly appeared. "Damn it, it seems like we have met with a tough nut." The leader holding the blade couldn't help but curse. He spat out a mouthful of saliva and polished the blade in his hand. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.